I don't mean to put it on your nose, but it's clear how my baby's running this the block cause you fear what you do to you if you get dirty hands and veneer. What you do, what she is, little boy, I tell you this. If baby won't sit, she can sit. If baby says lit, it's lit. Got your bank account and not cute. If she said it loud, it's the truth. If baby wanna ride, she can ride. If baby needs some time, she got time. Got your bank account and not cute. She can make it count, how about you? She would put you in the bag, wouldn't even need a planet. If she wanted, she a magnet. They should let her name a planet. Everything she drop like Corona, viral, make the world start over like a owner. She ain't about to set, but they really wanna throne her. Listen, she like bass, she like Hover. Self-employed, moving paper better than some Billy Boy. Made a choice from the regular, she bring.
Hello. All right, everybody. Hello. Thank you for coming out and welcome to a very special episode of Unapologetic with Mandrill on the Black Men Unfiltered Network. Let's see. We're going to get right into this one. Thank you for coming, Dre Blanco, Melissa, DL Saint, Lisa Morrison, Leah. Who else we got in here, Shamaria?
Learn to love myself.
Yeah, there
How are you? Saki's Speak Easy. How you doing? Okay. We got Leah, Melissa. How y'all doing? All right.
All right, everybody. If you want to donate to us at the show, hit us on the Cash App at Clue21. It's scrolling at the bottom of the screen. The PayPal is also there. And I'd like to welcome my special guest today, Consciouz TV. We have another special guest coming in. Consciouz, thank you for coming out. Thank you for joining us for this conversation. Of
course. Thank you for the invite. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. We have Mr. Paul Bennett here. We got two more people who's supposed to be here. They haven't pulled up yet, though. But
Reckless is on the way right now. He was given 10:30.
By whom?
Yeah.
8:30 Central. How does that translate to 10? He's on the East Coast.
He's very special.
Gotcha. Gotcha. 8:30 Central. Get out of here!
Oh Lord.
Right. No, you're on the East Coast. It's 9:30 your time. Same thing with Freezy, I guess. Freezy's supposed to be here. So I guess they'll get here when they can. I'll message them while we're here. But we're here for another episode of Bridging the Gap. Last time I did an episode like this, it was about bridging the gap between the older generation, meaning Generation X, and the younger generations, the millennials and younger. And we know that there's a divide there. And we just had a round table discussion on how can we bridge the gap between the two generations, you know what I mean, of men, because the older generation, for a myriad of reasons, just weren't there. So you have a lot of guys out here who are growing up and just trying to figure out manhood on their own, and they're stumbling along the way a lot more than they should be stumbling. So that was the conversation about today. This conversation is about something that I've been observing for years now, haven't been able to understand it. And I want to see if I can bridge the gap between heterosexual cisgender men and people are members of the LGBTQ plus community. Within the Black community too, because as Black people, y'all can get mad at me if you want to, but it's the truth. We seem to be the most inviting, forgiving, loving, and accepting people on the entire planet, except when it comes to our own, particularly within the LGBTQ community. Like, we treat them like absolute trash, and I don't understand why. So that's my thing. That's the bridge that I'm trying. The bridge that I'm trying to build here. A bridge between heterosexual cisgenders within the Black community and LGBTQ plus in the Black community. So keep in mind, gentlemen, Reckless and Consciouz, you might hear some questions tonight that might sound off color, but just know that they come from a place of ignorance. we don't know. You know what I'm saying? We just we don't know what to do. You know, so it's like so take it with a grain of salt. Don't let it insult you. That's gonna be this conversation. Now, once you drop the link, I can make no promises. I don't know what's gonna happen.
Well, you know, I'm always prepared to get ghetto. So
right. Okay, Mr. Bennett.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any questions for our guest tonight?
Oh, we're gonna start out with that.
Yeah, you might as well.
All right. Well, first of all, Consciouz TV. Nice meeting you. I don't think I've ever seen your content before, and I think the other guests who just joined.
thank you.
You know, certainly nice meeting you for the first time. Questions I may have starting out. Well, I would ask this: what value do members of, let's just say, that community? And again, I'm like Mandrell. If I say something ignorant, if I say something off-putting or whatever, it's not meant to be malicious in any way. So you can definitely check me on anything that I say that may cross a line or what have you. So I'll just start out with that. I'll leave with that as well. But I'm just curious as to what, from your personal point of view, as well as the community at large, what value do you put on, as Mandrell mentioned, cis heterosexual men and women in the society and in the world?
Can you unpack value a bit more?
Okay, because from my observation, I think one of the problems that I'm seeing between our two worlds, so to speak, I'll just leave it there, is that there's a lack of recognition and there's a lack of value to what each part has brought to the world. I'll just speak in terms of, for example, the Black community, because we can go and we can hide and we can say that, you know, want to keep stuff to the side, but that community has always been with us and they've worked with us and they've helped us. I find it ironic that how many people got married to, how many people met, got on the dance floor with, got married and had babies with listening to Luther Vandross. And before Luther Vandross, it was he just went out of my mind, an older Johnny Mathis. Before him, it was Johnny Mathis. So you made our music, all right? You've been a major part of our music, a part of our culture. You fought the civil rights battles with us, Bayard Rustin. I can't think of any one person who has been able to articulate the plight of the Black community more than James Baldwin. And if you haven't heard James Baldwin, go and look up James Baldwin debating. And again, I'm having memory losses right now. But who was the head of the National Review, Mandrell? You remember that guy? Who was he founded the National paper. I forget his name. William F. Buckley Jr.
Yeah.
See him in a debate in the 60s with William F. Buckley Jr. debating civil rights, debating what it means to be a Black man in America. We haven't had many voices that have been as articulate. You got to put them up there with Malcolm. You got to put them up there with Martin. You got to put them up. I mean, so major people. Yeah. You've been in our wars. You've been in our battles. You've taken stuff too. You're even suffering today regarding even the racism that you may see even coming out of that community. So my attitude towards the whole thing is that I'm accepting. I acknowledge and I accept the fact that you have been a part of us. You are us. You've been in the same battles with us. And I'm not here to denigrate. I'm not here. I'm just acknowledging what's already there. I'm one of those people. I don't think that there's been an increase or a systemic way of increasing the number of LGBTQ people out there. I just think that you've always been there. We just didn't know it, and people are being just more expressive with it. But it feels, the perception, though, is that, oh my gosh, it's like I go to the left and right on these games. No, they've always been there. They've been in your families. You knew about them in your families. They've always been there. Yeah. So I'm saying I recognize your existence, and I recognize your contribution to our world, whether we want to admit or accept it or not. But what I sometimes see is that obviously from the cis heterosexual side, there's a lack of acknowledgement of that that contribution. But but at the same time, I'm seeing from the other side, language that kind of says, well, is there value in being cis heterosexual? That in a few years, you won't even matter. You're the only value you have is that you just carry a baby, a woman heterosexual. You're able to carry children, but that's about it. But you're no different than someone who's had the surgeries or the transformations or whatever. So it seems like a lot of times what happens is people, in order to validate themselves, invariably they have to invalidate someone else. And so I'm asking from your communities, what value do you see in heterosexual people? Because just from a biological, forget any moral ramifications, there's a biological aspect to this. We're seeing in China now, we're seeing in Japan, we're seeing it in China. They're having massive population issues because they went to this thing where there was like a one-child policy. And now they're paying for it because their populations are growing older and they're dying out. And they're trying to find ways in terms of how to repopulate. So having people that are heterosexual, that are marrying, that are having children, that are having families, that is how you keep a population in a society moving and changing. So if everybody was heterosexual, and if everyone had one child only, you would still run into the same problem. So it seems like there's a need for the majority of people to be heterosexual and having families in order to exist. I'm just acknowledging that as a biological fact without putting any morality into it. But sometimes the voices I hear coming out of your community is that at some point that we're going to be irrelevant at some time. I'm not saying that's everybody. I'm not saying that's even the most important voices. But I'm asking, what value do you see the need, and do you recognize the value of heterosexual people marrying, having families, just out of just pure biology of it, that is still necessary? And that, because I think a lot of what's also coming from my side of the table is everyone's thinking, well, y'all just trying to take over. And so I'm asking you what your perspective, because I think what your perspective may add a lot to this discussion. What do you feel about us more so than, because a whole lot of people are talking about you, and I don't want this to be about me tonight. I'm just here So I hope that was a lot. You said unpack. I hope that was a lot.
That was a hell of an unpacking.
Ultimately, that's the question that I'm asking, and anyone can take that on.
Okay. Well, the dice are definitely loaded in a question like that. For one, I want to make it clear that I can't speak for the community. I can speak for Consciouz TV. For two, I don't base value on human beings based upon sexual orientation. So I see value in all people because they're simply people. Sexuality is not a part of that metric system for me. A lot has happened and a lot is happening in a changing world. Your question around population and heterosexuality is becoming an interesting one because of technology. We know that heterosexual sex is not even required at this point in order for sperm and an egg and a womb to do what it does. So LGBT couples are able to have their own children. They're able to have surrogates, etc. Technology is allowing for all of these intermediary spaces and opportunities to reproduce. Once again, I do not think that heterosexual people have anything to fear in terms of being replaced or anything of that sort. I think what the dominant society may have to do is ask themselves deeper questions about where their concerns really come from, where their fears really come from, because a lot of what I see when it comes to the negativity between both parties, hetero and LGBT, is a lot like the dynamics between the melanated and the Caucasoid race. And that is this idea of what will these people do? What will these Black people do if they come into control? What will they do if they have power? And it seems that now heterosexual people are kind of experiencing the same plight. Now, I think in the West, Black cis hetero men have a lot to work out, because I, as a melanated man, agree that we live in a white, capitalistic, patriarchal society where Black men in lots of ways are being emasculated. Where I disagree at is what that emasculation is. I know cis hetero men think that there's some agenda to be feminized and to be in heels and to look like Consciouz TV gorgeous. You know, that's not necessarily the agenda. But I understand that there's also a big historical context here that we don't discuss. And as far as I'm concerned, what has happened is you have a people who were imported here. In part, we know that indigenous Black Americans already existed in Americas, but then a certain sector of Black Americans were also imported here. You had white slave owners weaponizing things like sexual assault against Black male bodies and sodomizing Black men, buck breaking Black men. These things were psychological weapons done to keep Black men submissive and subdued. That same white system gave the Black community a remixed religion, a diluted one. And then what the Black community attempted to do, because of what was happening to Black men at the hands of Black slave owners, is use the scriptures as a way to soothe the issue of sexuality and this perversion. And in that, same gender lovingness, homosexual people got slandered as a result of trying to provide a proper space for Black cis hetero men to heal in, who were being sexually assaulted and humiliated, etc. And when society and community evolved, the Black church never recovered from that slander. They never recovered from that narrative. And so now you have this idea that same gender loving people are abominations, etc. And there's all this emphasis on the sex. There's all this emphasis on what we do and how we get down in our bedrooms, etc. And the Black community as a whole, I agree, needs to revisit that entire conversation. But that's a lot to ask for from a community that would, in order to do that, would have to actually revisit Western Christianity. And we know how much Christianity, Western Christianity, means to the Black community. And so the wound is deep. The issue is complex. I need Black cis hetero men to raise their self-esteem and to realize that their issue is not with other Black LGBT queer folk, but their issue is with the same person that's always been a problem for us all as melanated people, and that is the Caucasoid man. And for now, I'll rest my plane there.
All right. Reckless, are you still there? He stepped away for a minute. Okay, 1 minute. All right. Freezy, you heard both the question and the reply. And they're both fantastic.
I didn't.
Oh, he didn't. I don't think he heard the question.
Okay.
Yeah. You had me waiting in the clouds. I was waiting on you. Let me hear it again.
No, I asked Mr. Bennett, do you have a question for Reckless and Consciouz, right?
Oh, I got a lot of questions.
Man, he unpacked a huge question, right? It was like a zip file on a computer.
Yeah.
It was like 10 gigs of data just opened up, and Consciouz did a fantastic job of replying. I mean, it is what it is. And the reason why I'm having you guys ask questions first is because before we can build a bridge, we have to understand what we're dealing with. We have to get an understanding first of one another. So that's the goal of like letting you guys ask questions first. Then we're gonna move into like, okay, what solutions do you recommend? You know what I mean? We'll move into that right after the questions. So if you have questions for them, feel free to ask.
I got one question
wait.
real quick.
Go ahead, shoot.
Okay.
And you touched on it a little bit, Conscious TV. Do you feel like there is a gay agenda? Because you have a lot of people out here who feel like there is this agenda to turn the next generation of children out there turn homosexual.
That's a good one. That's shoot.
And I mean, like, in being in the media, you do see a lot more homosexual relationships and stuff like that. I personally, I don't have a problem with that only because for so long, I mean, everything else has been like heterosexual. So it's like, and I understand it's important for, people to see, ourselves in entertainment. But do you feel like there is a gay agenda?
Yeah, but not in the negative sense of the term gay agenda, in terms of is there an act for people to reclaim their time civilly and to reclaim proper legislation to ensure their safety, to ensure their rights, to ensure access to proper housing, to fair treatment, to fair job opportunity, etc. Absolutely. And there's no group without an agenda. The women's equality movement is a agenda. The civil rights is a agenda. Asian Americans who were seeking safety during Carisha 19 because of the way the country was dealing with them at that time was an agenda. So is there agenda? Sure. And should there be? Absolutely, because there have been massive damage done by this government and by the society to queer people, and that damage now is being accounted for. And you're absolutely correct. It was very bizarre as a queer man who had access to both feminine and masculine energies inside of myself to be raised in a space where there was no representation, there was no conversation, and there was only hate speech that was instructional and informative for me. So all I ever heard was, don't do that, you are not that, don't be that. That was the only information for me growing up. And then to grow up in a non-technological age where also you didn't have the convenience of identifying safe spaces. So you didn't even know who was queer, who wasn't, etc. The big thing is, I'm surprised that the dominant society isn't happy that there is an agenda to provide proper space for queer people, because in that way, beautiful women like you don't have to worry about being beards anymore for men who really want to be with Reckless or myself. So you can't, on one end, as a dominant class, have a society that wants to sweep LGBT people under the rug, and then at the same time have massive issue with the download community, because the download community is a byproduct of this suppression and oppression of sexuality and proper space. So you clear up issues on the back end by having the conversation. And I know that there's a big miseducation in the Black community about the way sexuality works, but unfortunately, I'm here to shock a few people that gay isn't contagious. And if sexuality actually scientifically and biologically operated that way, then with that logic, how do you explain the LGBT population who were raised in a predominant heteronormative society? There's no reason then that I should be gay, or that Reckless should be same-gender loving, or that any trans woman or trans man or non-binary person should exist, because all there was the representation offered by what was considered normal, which was you all beautiful brown people on this platform. So sexuality just doesn't work that way. There's nobody who can be made gay. I'm sure if I ask Frizzy if I'm gay enough around him, would that encourage him to be same gender loving? If he sees enough men kissing, would that encourage him, influence him, motivate him to be same gender loving? I'm sure Mandrell may actually, different story, but Frizzy may actually say, of course not. Mr. Bennett would say, of course not. But for some reason, the science works this way when it comes to the plight of queer people, but it doesn't, for whatever reason, work that way when it comes to heterosexual. And I don't know why queer people are made the exception in that way.
Okay. Well, what you just said, Conscious. I do agree. Go ahead, shoot. My bad. I'm sorry.
I wanted to get reckless logic.
I'm over here multitasking. I got my nieces and nephews in the next room, so I'm over here multitasking. Uncle of the year. Okay, so in my personal opinion, no, there is no gay agenda when it comes down to the conversation of this negative big bad wolf. We're here, we're going to put every heterosexual person in this time machine, and we're just going to convert them and make them all different types of ways. You're going to come out transgender, queer, etc. No, that's not what's happening. No, what's actually happening is that now you're starting to see queer people starting to have voices and starting to speak out for themselves and also having representation. Because the thing about it, I don't understand why I don't know why heterosexual people think this. They think that once we become 18, all of a sudden it's, oh my God, I'm gay. Oh my God, I'm trans. Oh my God, I'm this. No, you guys, heterosexual people, you guys have queer children. You guys have trans children. Now they may not, of course, transition, or they may not know all the answers, or they may suppress those things, but you have queer people and queer children that do exist. So that's really that's all that's going on. So that's all I want to say so far.
All right, Freezy, questions, comments?
Well, first I want to say I ain't get a chance to tell everybody hi. So I'm gonna just use this opportunity.
Hey, Frizzy.
I just popped up. Jeremy just brought me up. You know what I'm saying? But hey, hi everybody. And
what's going on?
Okay. So I want to say this, right? So I heard what Conscious said, and I was keeping up with what Mr. Bennett was saying. And I finally caught on to what he was getting to towards the end. And Reckless, I totally disagree with what Reckless said, but I want to say this right here. So basically, let's just be honest, right? The way society is going, I'm pretty sure everybody on the panel would agree with this. The way society is going, it's inevitable, right? I mean, whether you disagree with it or not, people are going to have to learn how to live amongst one another in this multicultural, multi-sexual society. You know what I'm saying? It's just inevitable. So, but I do want to say this. Now, to Shushu's question, she asked, was there a gay agenda? Now, I will say this. Conscious said something very significant where he said that at one point in time, there wasn't any homosexual representation on TV, whether it be, whatever, entertainment in general, radio, whatever, right? And he's right. But I will say this, we have to account for kids that, and I'm pretty sure Conscious and Reckless, you would agree with me when I say this, because this is factual information. We have to account for kids that went through, sexual abuse at a young age, right? And they experienced this even back then before there was exposure to entertainment as far as like what they're putting out now, right? But so to Reckless's point, yeah, there are kids that's dealing with, that's queer at a young age, but we can't discount some of the catalysts as to why I know a lot of these kids, or some of these, I don't know the amount, but some of these kids, why they are, they were influenced to be, go that route or whatever. So, but I want to say this. Now, where I draw the line at is, I want to ask your opinion. I want to ask your opinion because Reckless gone. I'll hopefully come back. But Conscious, I want to ask your opinion. I did a show on my channel. There's a book that I forgot what the author's name. He published a book called The Gay BCs, right? And then it just go down the line from A to Z. And A stood for such and such, B stood for bi, C stood for I forgot, but it was a bunch of homosexual terminologies. and the book was targeting kids from the ages of 3 to 7. Now I want to ask you your opinion, because I got a gay cousin. You know, she's married and everything, happily married. And I asked her opinion. She told me her opinion on that. But I want to ask you: do you think that's appropriate? Because we don't have books titled like purposely titled heterosexual books. It's just fundamental books towards kids. And I'm on the fence. Well, not on the fence. I disagree that books are specified to kids as far as like targeting kids and influencing them or teaching them as far as in a homosexual atmosphere. Do you agree that it's okay to publish this type of material to kids that age as far as specifying homosexuality and that type of education towards kids at that age instead of actually letting them just learn fundamentally until they get a certain age? I don't know do you understand what I'm saying?
I'm following.
Okay.
It's a double-edged sword when it comes to that conversation. I want to go back a little bit to what you were saying about accounting for young people who have been through sexual assault, etc. What a lot of people don't know is that what psychologists have now determined is that those experiences do not make people, it doesn't change their orientation. What it unfortunately does is reveal people's orientation to themselves in a way that's inappropriate, because nobody should be self-discovering through sexual assault. Nobody should be self-discovering through molestation. But unfortunately, there's still information in that experience for people. And so this ideal that assault somehow curves orientation is just not simply true. And then to add insult to injury, you have people who are having these detestable experiences at the hands of the adults around them. And then that person who may have been pansexual, bisexual, or queer oriented all along also lives in an oppressive society. So it deepens the sunken place experience. As it relates to academia, I personally don't think it's appropriate to have any sex-like conversation with elementary students. I would even say maybe middle school students as well. But being realistic, we know that these kids are getting started very early. Sexual ed was offered to me and taken up with me from the 7th grade to the 8th grade. So that's when the school system decided to have the birds and the bees conversation with us as middle schoolers. Was 7th grade, 8th grade. I want to say even 6th grade too is when it really started. But I think that there's a different way to have that conversation. I think that teaching young people about the diversity of people that exists is okay. Can you do that without sexual language? Sure. Is there other ways to inform young people about themselves or inform young people about the world around them? Absolutely. But I also want to add that I think it's interesting that once again, the exception is made for that queer education, because nobody contested why I needed to learn about the vagina and my penis at the hands of the school system as a 7th grader. Nobody ever contested, the dominant society never contested Beauty and the Beast, Jasmine and Aladdin, and all of this hetero representation. Nobody ever contested why Bugs Bunny, when he saw his love interest, was essentially horny by vibrating and having his heart thriving out of his chest, and he's literally levitating off the ground with his tail wagging. I mean, nobody ever contested the horniness of Mr. Potato Head, whose eyeballs busted out of his head at the sight of a very sassy Mrs. Potato Head coming in with her red heels and her like. And so I beg to ask, why the exception? Because we're not acting like young people have not been exposed to. Let's take the graphic depictions of woman's body in X-Men or Street Fighter, in these comic books, who are in skin tight clothes, bosoms busting, ass hips for days. There's literally sexual enticement in the way that these characters are illustrated. And we launch off those comic books to our young boys and to our young women without a thought. But let the context be LGBT anything, then we have to have congressional hearings like this for some reason. And I just want, I have questions for y'all. I know y'all got questions for me, but I have questions.
Gotcha.
Why the double standard?
Well, from my perspective, the double standard comes from it's just what we're used to. It's been heterosexuality has been pretty much the depiction of heterosexuality in media and in life in general has been a mainstay for centuries. So, you know what I'm saying? But no one, it's like you said, we do this kind of stuff without a second thought. But like for me, like people like this whole gay thing or LGBTQ is new. I'm like, nah, if you read the Bible, this is over 2,000 years ago. And I agree with Mr. Bennett. Like they fight in our wars and the whole nine. Because I served with a guy who was flamboyantly gay, right? Like seriously, like, I mean, you think he was a woman if you saw him walking at a distance, right? But at the same time, when shit got thick, he didn't play any games. Played no games. He was sick with it. Okay? Serious. I was actually glad that he was on my team. Like, glad that joker here. And none of us cared about his sexuality. Like even before we got deployed, like we didn't really care. But then I'm saying that to include that I mean that's if you ever need proof that gay people can serve in the military or that they can do anything a heterosexual man can do, that's proof of it. They fight in a freaking war and survive and save lives and do good work. You know what I'm saying? So I don't understand. Like for me, this whole broadcast came because I don't understand the hate. I don't understand why you would treat someone like trash just because they like something differently than I do. I mean, you know, I don't get it. Like, and so my thing is, okay, is there a way to get people to understand that they're wrong for that? And even if they acknowledge that they're wrong, do you think they'd even care? But to answer your question, it's just because heterosexuality has been a mainstay in society for so long. That's just why. And because it's different, people are afraid of what's different. So they tend to overreact and lash out.
Somebody in the comment section just said because heterosexuality is the majority. In that case, we know that women are the majority of the population. So why isn't the world largely matriarchal rather than patriarchal? By that very same logic, then we should be doing things the way that women want things to be done. We should be forming.
I got you. I think, but some people would say, especially in our community, that's already happening. Right, some people would say that the Black community is already matriarchal and that most people are raised by, a lot of us are raised by single mothers.
We're talking about legislation.
If you look at the churches,
you're talking about legislation.
So I'm just, what's that?
They're talking about like legislation.
Well, I'm not even just talking about legislatively. Like there are matriarchal pockets and sectors within the Black community, but the Black community is largely patriarchal. That's even those single Black women raising children were largely dependent upon men because of the issue of a patriarchy. These churches might be filled with women, but they're led majority by men. Men represent the pulpit and outnumber female pastors far and wide because of the issue of patriarchy. Men even determine the social rules, both taboo and normal in the Black community, which is why men run the household, once again, and stay in leadership positions. They're head of the marriage, etc. They determine the trickle-down effect for everyone else when they're in a position to do so. So women, what you just described, Mr. Bennett, and you don't realize it, is that women carry the weight, but men get all the credit for it, unfortunately, in a patriarchy.
You better say that.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey,
Was a
I
better
told,
reaction.
I told
Say
y'all.
that. Okay.
I told you.
You better say that.
I told you.
Sorry.
That's exactly what it is.
No joke.
We're gonna have the real conversation, y'all.
Okay.
No joke. It's not a game. But I like to interject this. While researching this subject, I found out that there's a big study. They had 500,000 people, and they studied this for over 15 years with a control group of 500,000 people. Now, what came out of it were two things. There is no gay gene, says a lead study author, Andrea Ghana, a geneticist at the Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Okay, there's no gay gene. And what makes a person gay, straight, or bi? It's complicated. They don't know. 15 years of study, 500,000 people in the control group. I don't know. The closest answer they came to was that number one, they found nothing in your DNA that makes you gay or determines that you're going to be gay or you're going to be straight or whatever the case may be. They found nothing in the DNA that they said that whatever in our body chemistry or our brain or whatever the case may be that governs what we're going to be attracted to or not, at whatever point in time, some people fall on one end of the spectrum of attraction, some people fall on the other, some people fall in the middle, and they said completely random select. You know what I'm saying? There's like, so they answer like, are people born gay? The answer is well, yes. You know what I'm saying? There's no gay gene, and no one can help what they're attracted to. No one has any control over that.
The thing is, who in the hell is anybody to have to demand that someone qualifies their humanity and their stake in this world or in this country?
Heterosexual people. They're the only ones that always want to make the rules, and so that's the reason why
no, hold on now. God,
they have to be the ones to make the rules. They want to because I kind of want to get up in here because now I'm finna because he was kind of warming y'all up.
We're gonna at about 9:30 in 15 minutes we're gonna drop the link. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
go ahead, Reckless.
It's heterosexual people that those are they want to feel like they want to understand so they can be able to respect instead of just putting respect automatically on the board. Because some people don't understand why Consciouz looks the way that he does. They feel like I shouldn't have to respect you. It doesn't matter that you're black. It don't matter that you may look different. It don't matter, the whole thing of black first. It's all about, I don't understand you. Since I don't understand you, I have the right to disrespect you. So the question is, y'all should ask us that question. Y'all need to answer that. Y'all the one that y'all made the books. Y'all made the Bibles. Y'all the ones that made the rules, said that people like Consciouz in his state cannot give blood. Y'all are the ones that these are the things that heterosexual people put into place. Remember, you guys are the majority.
Okay, girl. First of all, don't single me out like I'm the only one up here throwing my ass in a circle because you just as gay as I am. Okay, so they don't want
shade. I am. I'm just saying, but that's a question y'all need to answer.
Okay, so I would argue this. Right? Especially in modern day society, the homosexual community has a lot of power. Especially in the entertainment world. Listen, we talking about top execs. You guys heard the stories in the music business, music industry, TV industry. I'm pretty sure Shushu has been behind some closed doors. She probably have seen a lot of big wigs that have a lot of control in the entertainment world that's homosexual. And I've been in the music business for a long time. And I'm telling you, once you go through a certain types of thresholds and stuff, a lot of those people are not heterosexual people. And this is the cause for why, we have incidences where, I wanted to see a show so bad like The Last of Us. I wanted to see that show so damn bad. But when I got to the third episode, it's two white men with a bunch of hair on their chest kissing each other in the bed, right? But I'm not saying they should have. I am not saying they wrong for that. I'm just saying it was like it's almost like it's on purpose because that episode had nothing to do with the I want y'all to follow me.
Yeah, but Freezy, if you played the game, that character, both of those characters in the game were gay. I'm not taking sides here. I'm not taking sides here.
Take the side of truth, Mandrell. Take the side of truth. It's okay.
Come on. I'm just saying, Freezy, you know me. I'm fair.
What game are you talking
fair about it? I try to be fair about things.
What game are you talking about?
The Last of Us, the video game. In the first one,
I'm talking
in the first one, that character was in the first game, and his partner, you know, he kept.
Oh, and they made it into a TV show. That's what you're saying,
right? It's a video game that they made into a TV show.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you didn't know that? Oh, well, there you go.
Wait. So you saying that them two gay white guys in the third episode, they was on the video game?
Yeah. And the thing, like that's what I didn't. When people came up with an uproar about that, I was like, "Wait a minute!" But they was gay in the game. What are you talking about? Why would you have a problem with it now? Like that's the part I didn't understand. Like,
okay,
they was gay in the beginning. Like,
see, I didn't know that. Okay,
that's the part that confused me. I was like,
I have a question for you, Freezy. I have a question for you, Freezy. Like,
you got me on that. Go ahead, Consciouz. Go ahead.
But when you say that, you know, it's totally unnecessary. But how many movies and series of all genres, whether it's action, whether it's comedy, have some type of unnecessary love arc between a man and a woman? Whether it's 007, who has who they still manage to put in front of a woman, face to face, lip to lip. There's unnecessary heterosexual sex scenes, like the very sweaty. Well, I'm not even going to go there. But like gay people have had to live in a world where like it just was what it was. I don't understand why heterosexual people have a hard time just like it is. Like, why can't y'all say it is what it is?
Well, this is my thing. Listen, let me answer Conscious. This is my thing. Okay, I don't go around looking homosexual people up and down like they strange and all that kind of stuff. No, you know what I'm saying? What I'm saying is why, you know, in certain incidences on certain publications, sometimes it seems forced. Like, okay, like the Gay BC book I'm talking about. Or like, okay, I've seen, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if you guys seen this, but they got this thing now where drag queens are going to elementary schools teaching them about trans life and, you know, reading homosexual books and the kids.
I wish I had that.
Kids, you feel them? Okay, so what I'm saying is all the kids aren't homosexual. So if let's just say if I had a child,
all the kids aren't heterosexual either.
That's true. That's true. But listen what I'm saying. If I had a child, right, in school, if my child is going to be subjected to that, because they're doing this without the parents' consent. They just bringing drag queens into school.
The school system does with everything. Like how, like when has the school system had a historical precedent of making sure that we all had a say so in their curriculum, that we had a say so in the guests they bring to the school? That like there's even never been a historical precedent for that to begin with.
Okay,
the school system has never gotten the population involved in their dealings.
So basically, you talking about equity, you talking about equality, right? I understand. I get where you're going, but we have to have a foundation somewhere, right? To me, and this is just my opinion. I'm not trying to force you guys to think the way I think. Of course I can't. But what I'm saying is, to me, the foundation is what's natural. You're going to naturally accept a heterosexual couple because they can procreate.
No.
Just follow me. You and another man cannot make a baby. You can't. I'm listen. You know, y'all already know we gonna cook. We gonna cook tonight. We already know.
Yeah, I know. But I don't think even though y'all gonna be cooking, I don't think we're gonna be the one in the oven. Just letting you guys know.
I ain't saying all that regular.
You guys heads up.
Okay. But what I'm saying is the reason to, and I think Consciouz touched on this earlier. Why the double standard, right? I think it's because in most societies, heterosexual households, backgrounds, and stuff like that, it's accepted more because of the procreation aspect. people can have a man and a woman can have a baby with one another and then further their lineage, right? But with a homosexual couple, what, you know, I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong. I'm not up here campaigning for that. I'm just talking about why. I'm answering your question as far as why is it a double standard? Why am I up here complaining about a drag queen coming to school teaching all the kids about drag queens and homosexuality and all that? It's because most of society is heterosexual, and most of society believes that the way you further a lineage is through heterosexuality. So okay, I think most parents would be okay if there was like some kind of permission slip or notification before you bring, you know, a person in that's a drag queen and educate their child that's unbeknownst to the parent about homosexual life or drag queen life, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, I'm gonna let y'all go ahead.
Go ahead, Reckless.
No, I was gonna say, I just think it's very interesting that a lot of the times when we get into the conversation of queer people, queer children, heterosexual children, and the school allowing different types of people to enter the school or whatever, these tactics are used to humanize a group of people who have been constantly dehumanized throughout history. So I think it's very interesting that a lot of heterosexual people take issue with the methods and tactics of humanizing a group of people, but yet they have no issue and take no issue with taking their children to church, the same church that teaches you to dehumanize the same group of people. So where's the inclusive perspective that you guys claim all the time? Like, where is that? Because a lot of the times you guys talk about we're inclusive, you don't have no problem, I wish we had a permission slip. But if you're going to be there anyway, then what's the purpose of the permission slip? You want the permission slip so you can opt out.
Okay, so but Reckless, be fair, Reckless. If the school said my child was going to go on a field trip, and they were going to be in an unfamiliar territory or place that I didn't expect my child to be in, shouldn't the parent be notified? So if I'm sending my child to school, in my mind, and I'm pretty sure the principal know this, and even if the principal was homosexual, even the homosexual principal know that most of these parents, most of these children are raised in heterosexual households. And if a drag queen come in to teach their child something about homosexuality, that would be unfamiliar territory. So why not give notification just like you would with a field trip?
Well, my question to you as a parent, did you get notification when Big Bird read to your child? Did you get a notification when Big Bird, Yellow Bird, Big Bird, when that fucking character was reading to your child? Did you get
Sesame Street
when Barney was reading to your child?
I don't think so. I ain't never had that. I ain't never been through that.
Well, you chose to expose your children to Barney or Big Bird. You decided to turn on the channel on Sesame Street or buy the Barney video and put it in your VCR.
And don't you guys see how dehumanizing?
But Big Bird ain't got no sex. Big Bird ain't homosexual or heterosexual.
I think it's okay. Here's another thing. Y'all really sit up here act like they're literally in the classroom showing porn to these children.
Big Bird fucking?
But Barbie and Ken are together.
Okay, you won that.
What it is, I think what the issue is really when it comes to.
Hold on. Because I'm about to bust out of my damn things now. Like, I just thought, how in the hell do y'all have more humanity for the Cookie Monster, Big Bird, Santa Claus than y'all do actual human beings who are on the gender spectrum? Because the same school that you want a permission slip to send out to parents to give them the choice. It's the same school that's not going to ask you, can they hire a drag queen as the math teacher? Can they hire a trans man as the English teacher? I don't understand. Like, I don't, and I know that heterosexual privilege is so blinding, which is why I call it hetero supremacy. Like, the hetero supremacy of it all is so blinding. Like, your privilege comes so natural to you that you don't even understand how disgusting and dehumanizing and demoralizing it really sounds for you to seek out or to propose that a human being should have permission to teach in a communal space. And this is what gets, because I can't even get into the whole LGBT thing, because there's active segregation within the LGBT community in terms of there's us and then there's the Caucasoids, two totally different LGBT crews. One has all the power that you hear talk about, though they run the system, they have their white privilege, it carries them even as minorities within the majority. Black LGBT folk are just still niggas to the system. So that power, that privilege, that government, that whatever you all imagine in y'all brains does not exist for niggas like me and niggas like him. And then y'all want to talk about sexuality and sexuality and sexuality and sexuality. There's not one freaking Barbie doll that's on the market that your child can't undress and see titties. See titties, can actually undress and make naked. And there's no congressional hearing about the underlying sexuality of it all. That your child is somewhere with his cousins, with his friends, hunching dolls together that are able to be undressed and emulate human autonomy. Like, but then you want to have then we have to have panels like this about. Do you disagree with that, Consciouz? A drag queen is not teaching sex. Most of those drag queens are actually reading child stories to crews. They're not even teaching sexuality. And this is another part of the issue, is that the dominant society consistently sexually objectifies LGBT people. No matter whether we come fully dressed, I come bearing, fully dressed, fully covered. And yet the topic is going to be, for a lot of people, or what people see is my sex. What they imagine still is what I do in the bedroom. You think of a drag queen, you see him or her naked. It's the over-sexualization of queer people, and then y'all mad when queer people lead from their sexuality.
But Consciouz, I never said, listen, with all due fairness, right? I never said that drag queens should get permission to teach at schools. I said that if drag queens, if there's a drag queen that comes to a school and provides a certain type of education, right? I feel like the kid needs permission in respect of the parents on whether they're going to participate, with listening to or in that classroom with the drag queen. And I say that because of this. That's not the only case that a child would need permission to do something. Schools require permission for a lot of things. It might be joining the chess club. It might be to play football. It might be to play basketball. Anything. Even if I'm in physical education, I'm going to need permission as a child to do certain things in physical education. So having permission as a child to do something that the parent that would deem unfamiliar with the parent than what they sent their child to school to do, I don't think that's out of the ordinary or cruel. I don't think that, I really don't. But what you said as far as like the drag queen needs permission to teach, I never said that. I agree with you totally on that. I do. And I want to ask you this. You know what? I don't want to hog the panel because it seemed like Shoo and Mr. Bennett just looking at me like, damn, Freezer. You know what I'm saying? But
I do got a question.
I do. I think really what it boils down to, when you talk about a drag queen coming to school and reading a book to children, or you talk about any kind of homosexual influence whatsoever, like a book that explains like homosexual terms or whatever. Right. It's the fear of influence. That's really what it boils down to. It's the fear that this material or this conversation is going to turn my child into a homosexual. Because let's just be real. Most parents don't aspire for their children to be homosexual. Most parents want their children to grow up and have children and stuff. You know what I'm saying? They want their children to be heterosexual. And what it does is it forces a conversation. And I mean, and especially in this day and age, the bottom line is, bar none, the conversation needs to be had with children. It just does. You know what I mean? Because children aren't stupid. Like, even if you try and force a child, you know, tell a child, okay, a man is supposed to look like this and but then when you go out into the world and you have a man who has nails or has a wig or something like that, the child is gonna be like, okay, well, wait a minute, but that's a man, but he doesn't look like what you said a man supposed to look like. Why is that? The bottom line is a conversation still needs to be had with children. When it comes to sexuality, people, heterosexual, homosexual, whatever, people have a hard time and do a very poor job at having a conversation about sex at all with their children. You know, but the bottom line is it forces a conversation, and that's what makes people uncomfortable. It makes people uncomfortable because it's like they're so afraid that having a man dressed up as a woman coming to a school is going to make them say, hey, oh, I want to be like that. That's really what it is.
When the sad fact is, those parents, what they feared the whole time, that kid might be already queer. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, again, the scientific study, this is science. They did this study for over 15 years. They have 500,000 people in the control group, right? And they tested everyone's genome. Everyone's genome. You know what I'm saying? And the thing is, it's like, there's no way to tell who's going to be gay, straight, or otherwise. There's nothing in your DNA that says you're going to be one way or the other. There's no way to influence it.
But Mandrell,
the thing is, I know a lot of people say it's unnatural, but my thing is this: I'm like, how much more natural can it be?
Right.
But Mandrell,
I mean, when you look at the science of it, I'm just like, hey, y'all can come up here and argue. We're about to drop the link in a little bit. So I mean,
but even with what Susu said, I mean, but look at what Susu said about parents want their children to be straight. I just think it's funny that once again, heterosexual folk can sexualize children, because that's a sexualization. That's a romantic sexualization of children. Like, why is any adult even concerned about the sexual orientation of their child? Why are they even concerned, as if they have to lay down with the people that their children have to lay down with? And contrary to popular belief, being same gender loving or being trans, which is not even a sexual conversation, that's a gender conversation, do not prohibit us from using our reproductive system. Plenty of us have children. Like plenty of us have marriages. The brat just gave birth to her child. Same gender loving women, same gender loving men bear children, their own children. They adopt. They participate in all the same systems, in vitro, surrogates, that the hetero community does. But I also think, and see, we go down the rabbit hole in this discussion because you have a lot of moving parts. You have transphobia, homophobia, religious ostracity. You have black men being emasculated. You have all these things. And then within that, when it comes to parents, you also have the issue of parental narcissism. Yeah, and you have this idea that parents give themselves the right to think they should have influence in areas of their child who will become an adult's life that are actually odd, to say the least. Because when I think of my nieces and nephews who I'm raising, I don't think about their orientation. I could give a damn less whether they're going to be with men or women, whether they're going to identify as trans. My job is to successfully raise human beings with a very strong sense of ethics and morals and character. I don't give a damn about anything outside of that. If they want to get tattoos and be pierced out and go be a world-renowned tattoo artist as their legacy, so be it. Like, if they want to be asexual, so be it. If they want to be polygamous, I don't have anything to do with that. That is regardless of me. I'm only worried about raising a child who doesn't become a atomic force like Saddam Hussein in this world, who doesn't become a nuclear force like Osama bin Laden, because I'm clear that I'm raising a god, not a mortal. I'm raising someone who has the capacity to turn societies and cultures upside down and to make history for better or for worse. And curving that has nothing to do with sexuality. To Mr. Bennett's point, there's been plenty of same-gender loving people who participated in making the world better, who are all up and through civil rights, who are all up and through grassroots movements to make things better for the plight of queer people and minorities within minorities, because we're talking about a consciousness. I have a preference of consciousness when it comes to children, and the heterosexual community has a preference of sexuality when it comes to children. They want heterosexual children. I want well children.
Conscious, I totally agree with you. I think that society should not demonize a homosexual person just because they're homosexual. Hell, I know some homosexual people I would trust with $100 before I trust a heterosexual. Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. Trust me, I don't believe in that. What I'm saying is, I do believe, and I'm just being candid. I think that the homosexual community has a lot of unrealistic expectation when it comes to equality. You just mentioned the brat. She homosexual, right? And okay, that they always homosexual until they need to have a baby, then they need to be heterosexual for 30 minutes. You know what I'm saying? So she get pregnant and then be back homosexual. What I'm saying is there has to be a foundation. We have to identify a foundation. See, what Brad did was understand there is a foundation. In order for me to get pregnant, I got to go back to that natural foundation and then come back to, my preferred lifestyle after I get pregnent. But see, what I'm saying is,
a frizzy.
Okay, go ahead.
You're conflating two different things.
I am.
Reproduction is not synonymous to heterosexuality. Okay, for one. And we know that not to be the case because there are plenty of asexuals who are abstinent and celibate, who takes vows, religious vows of celibacy, like nuns and priests who abstain intentionally from hetero practices, from participating in sex. There are asexual people, and they're just people who don't care to have children. That's not a part of their legacy. That's not a part of their responsibility.
Can you repeat what you just said, though? Can you repeat? Because you just confused the hell out of me just then. Okay, so you said that having a baby is not just with two heterosexual people?
I said that our reproductive system and heterosexuality are two different things. Y'all conflate them because it just makes sense for y'all to conflate them. You're straight, you participate in a sex that then provides said baby. So that makes sense as a sense of normalcy and expectation for y'all. But you
would agree that a man and a woman having sex is a heterosexual act. You would agree with that?
No, because
you would.
I just disagreed with that by making a distinction between I still have a reproductive system, right? I don't have to participate in putting my penis inside of a woman in order to procreate, which is why we brought up these other alternative means of pregnancy, like surrogacy, etc. You don't have to. The brat didn't have to go have sex with a man to get pregnant. She had to go see a doctor to get pregnant.
Right.
You
didn't have to. I don't have to go be with a woman and get sweaty in order to have a baby. I need to go to a doctor, or hell, I can give my sperm to one of my female friends who also wants to partake in having a baby. Plenty of queer people and straight people come together to do that as well. I'm saying that we could have babies without heterosexual sex because of these other alternative means and because of technology.
But you still need a Y. You still need an X and Y.
Nobody's denouncing any of that. You're moving the
goalpost. Gotcha. Give me 1 second, people. I gotta make an announcement. We're about to drop the link, everybody. So Reckless, Conscious, gear up. Okay.
So I ain't got to get ready.
I just have one more question, if I can.
All right, let me make this announcement. We're gonna everyone, because of the time limit that I have here, everyone's gonna get one question. Okay. Everybody who comes up, you get one question. All right.
Yeah, and please be respectful. Please be
Yes,
respectful.
please be respectful to our guests. Okay.
No, actually, they can come up here and do whatever they need to do. Once again, hey, y'all are the patriarchs. Y'all the leaders. You lead left, I'm gonna go left. You lead right, I'm gonna go right. I'm gonna follow your lead.
I ain't been disrespectful. I ain't been disrespectful.
You have been very respectful in your Discord, and I appreciate it.
Now, Mr. Bennett, before we drop the link, Mr. Bennett, you had a question?
Yeah.
What was that?
Well, just for Reckless and Consciouz, because I know you guys made a lot of in your statements talking about, religion, and certainly that is absolutely been a factor in the discrimination, in the abuse, and all those things. But you certainly have societies in the world that, unless you think otherwise, where religion is not necessarily a factor, but yet and still you have members of that community that are still, under oppression. I mean, China really isn't religious. I mean, it's hard, Christianity isn't well favored there, but certainly there's very limited LGBTQ rights there. Russia isn't necessarily the most religious country, and yet they have it there as well. So, it seems like across the world, it doesn't matter whether the country has a strong, whether it be a predominantly Christian country or a Muslim country or a country that's non-religious or what have you. It doesn't seem like there is any group of people as a nation or country that seems to be friendly or amenable to that lifestyle, at least as in mass, maybe some European countries or what have you. But it seems like, so I just want to say, I just don't think this is just purely about religion or the Bible or whatever. There's discrimination to go around in democratic countries, communist countries. It's just all over the place. So I just want to see what you guys feel about it. Or do you think at the end of the day, it's still about religion at the end of the day?
No, I have stated multiple factors. Patriarchy is the biggest, the majority is the biggest, religious influence, and even some of those countries you talked about are Christianized, colonized countries, including why Africa currently is very homophobic, which is not true to Africa's natural state prior to colonization. Africa,
that's a question I've been asking for a while, because I know about, obviously, the Christianization and, again, Islam coming to Africa, but I'm always curious about what African culture was like prior to those major influences, what life was like. I'm still, I haven't really got a definitive on that, but that is a question I'm
going to butcher the hell out of a lot of African names, but the Dogon community and tribe of Africa pre-colonization is one. There are literally an influx of communities and tribes all over east, west, north, south of Africa who worship androgynous intersex deities. Same gender loving relationships were highly revered, in some communities even more revered than heterosexual dynamics, primarily because we're talking about a group of people who were more metaphysical in their understanding of the world than kind of like had a naturalist view of the world. These people understood that the divine is multifaceted and dual and has polarity, where there's femininity and masculinity. They understood, because we are all products of the divine, that both men and women could have access and have chunks of femininity and masculine ratio within themselves. Sometimes the divine feminine would personify a male body. Sometimes the divine masculine would personify a female body. They provided spaces to see this as sacred and divine, not as something that was abnormal, not something that where they reduce people to their genitalia, they reduce people to their sexuality, etc. And then Black people have to have some damn common sense and ask themselves, why in the hell would the white man have had to colonize Africa if Africa was already homophobic? Why would they have had to introduce homophobia into the system if African people were already homophobic and transphobic as hell? The logic doesn't even work that way. But you also have a lot of African American people who were just not well studied on Africa pre-colonization, because even our education here is completely whitewashed and through the lens of those who conquered. And those are the ones who write the stories. Those are the ones who provide the information. The women. Right.
Consciouz is right. Consciouz right. Even in the Bible's homosexuality is not a new thing. I mean, it's been around since antiquity. You know what I'm saying? So I agree. I agree with Consciouz. But go ahead, Mandrill.
Yeah. We're gonna take a brief break. All right. After the break, we're gonna drop
And
the
let the
links.
thugs up, baby.
Yeah, right. Okay. All right. Let's
Oh Lord.
producer, take the break, drop the link. Let's go. Where's the
All right, can y'all hear me, Mandro?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
hear
we
you.
hear you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all for being here tonight. Thank you for the guests for being here tonight, man. Great show so far. Great dialogue. So thank you guys. Before we bring everybody up, I want to lay down the rules here, and the rules are going to be very strict on anybody that comes up. So I'm going to say it one time, and that's going to be it. When you come up, you can have dialogue, healthy dialogue, no disrespectful dialogue, no out of context name calling, anything like that, because we're all adults here. So I'm asking before you come up, if you're coming up with that type of energy, I'm gonna drop your ass like they did Snowfall on FX. So don't come up here with that bullshit. I'm telling you right now, before I bring your ass up here, that don't come up here with that bullshit. All right, come up here, ask your question. You only get one question. We're not doing question one, then ABC. One question, one response. Yeah, because a lot of people want to come up and ask questions. All right. Who? Oh, damn, not military. I'm sorry. All right, here we go. So thank you again. Thank you. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, hit the subscribe button. If you have not hit the like button, hit the like button. If you want to donate to Mandrell and Shushu for this great content tonight on the Black Man Unfiltered Network, please look at the bottom of the screen as it scrolls across. If you want to donate to the channel, you can go ahead and give a super chat as well. Thank you guys again. And let's get back to the show. Here we go. I'll bring up our first guest. We'll bring up, y'all want them all at one time or y'all want them at one at a time?
One at a time. One at a time.
All right, here we go.
Sweet Jesus.
We got Tyrese first. Come on, Tyrese.
Sweet Jesus, one at a time. All right, Tyrese. Tyrese, thank you for coming up, man. Thank you for supporting the platform as usual, brother.
Thank you for inviting me, man.
No problem.
Interesting conversation. I had one comment for Kane and a question. Kane, if you reread the Bible, what you'll notice is that, remember when the Bible was written, its most adversarial religion was pagan, like a lot of those primal religions. So if you reread the Bible, especially the Old and New Testament, you will see the inherent poison pill that Christianity spreads with paganism that's more rooted in that more tribal stuff. My question actually is going to be very left field for you, Kane. I served with trans people that I know that I'm really good friends with. However, as far as the system goes, it seems like you get transgender people get an extra benefit because while us veterans get GI Bill, you guys get the GI Bill plus gender reaffirming surgery. So it's almost like you're double dipping in the benefits. And I was wondering if that would actually be something that we could have that conversation where it's actually optional, where if you want something that expensive, then you either have to choose between the GI Bill or gender reaffirming surgery. Would that be something that you think would be okay?
What the heck? What you said? Say it again, Tyru. I got confused. You know what he said, Reckless?
Yes, he said he served in the military with transgenders, and as everybody knows, soldiers, they end up having benefits once they leave or whatever. They end up having benefits. Now, one of the benefits is called the GI Bill, but however, transgenders have another bill. I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, they have another bill or another incentive in addition to that. So yeah. He wants to know, would it be fair if to make them choose between the GI Bill or the trans incentive, or they should still be allowed to have both?
Oh, okay.
Come on, translation.
Hey, that was really good, man. Thank you. Thank you for another.
Okay.
Thank you.
He's listening.
Okay. Listen.
And who was that question for?
That was for you.
Both you guys.
Oh, hold on. Well, I don't know much about the military. So, what is the GI Bill? What is
the GI Bill.
The GI Bill, that's what we use for like going to college and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
They pay a certain percentage of your college. Like you can go to like a regular school or a private college, whatever, but they're not going to pay for you to go to like Ivy League. Like they'll pay for some of it, but they'll give you a budget. You know what I'm saying? But the budget doesn't fit the entire thing. So you have to come out of pocket if you want to go. Ivy League's just too expensive. The government's just not going to pay for that. But you can go to almost any other university in the country on the GI Bill. You know.
Okay, Metro, I gotta explain that better. So the current GI Bill that veterans get actually does cover a lot of funds. For example, it covers tuition to any state school. So for Ohio State, that tuition is like $35,000 a year, right? But since it's a state funded school, veterans can go there. But as you know, $35K, that's equivalent to Ivy League, right? Tuition and fees, stuff like that. So what happens is that with the state tuition, depending on the school you go to, all of your funds are covered, your tuition and fees. Plus, they give you a monthly stipend for like rent and things like that, like a housing stipend. So that can actually total up to about the same cost that gender reaffirming surgery, or however that's properly termed, that's about the same. So, but let's say you're transgendered, you get that option of that surgery, plus you get the equivalent in education bills, something that it seems less of a protection and more like an extra benefit. You get what I mean? And so would it be okay if that's actually for transgendered because of the finances, that you have to choose one, either or of the benefit?
I'm gonna let Reckless swing at that first. He's a bit more. He has more education in that area. But well, what I will say is that I'm definitely not for taking anything away from minority folk who are already minority. So as far as I'm concerned, minority folk need to get everything that they can get. And I think that rallying behind what minority people need is actually, I mean, it's the passion of the underclass, but it's largely honestly the duty of the upper and dominant class. This is where they come in at in order to rally behind those who have been left behind. In terms of it being protection, I think that's also interesting too. Well, Reckless.
I was gonna say yes, allow them to have both, because I feel like he literally just said, is that if they're a minority, give it to them. Especially once they start letting, because even now, currently in the military and stuff, they're slowly but surely changing things, because now they're starting to realize that a lot of the standards and stuff do not fit melanated people. When it comes to height and weight, typically a lot of melanated women will fail height and weight because the standards are meant for European body structures. But a lot of times melanated women, they have hips and thighs, and they always get penalized for those things. So if they're a minority group, give them their reparation, give it to them. I'm here for it. I don't receive it, but it doesn't hurt me in any kind of way. Give it to them. You know, it doesn't matter to me.
All right, we got Trey. Trey, thank you for coming up here, man. Thank you for tuning in.
Man, what's going on, everybody? First, let me apologize for that. I'm not even sure what that question was about. I'm former military, and I was even lost and confused. I don't quite understand the purpose.
I didn't know what the hell you talking about.
It didn't make any sense. Look, I just wanted to say this. I don't really have a question so much, but I have a 13-year-old son. And one of the things that we have conversations about is his interactions with people in the community, right? And how he deals with that. And one of the things that I've explained to him, because I was in the military doing Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I'm a former police officer for 3 to 4 years of that time. My partner on the street was a lesbian, and she was probably the closest person to me. I trusted her with my life, right? So I don't have an issue with anyone, because majority of your community doesn't even pertain to me. So I don't have a dog in the fight, right? But when my son started to ask questions, I have to be able to give him answers, and I want to be able to give him honest answers. I want to be able to give him realistic answers, and I don't want to paint a picture of something that's not true. And I guess where I get a little bit irritated is this idea that I'm not supposed to try to figure out if he's actually gay or not, because I don't know how to approach him or how to go at him unless I ask specific, direct questions to him to figure out what he's feeling and what he's thinking, right? And if that comes off as though I'm sexualizing my son, well, then maybe I am, because I have to know, because I need to know how to approach it. I need to know how to have, what people to put him around, what's going to make him feel more comfortable, right? you know, if he walked out one day and he was wearing a dress, I can't have this visceral reaction, right? Because I need to be able to know these things. And it's a little bit disheartening because to me, when I hear people of your community say things like respect, use the word respect, I don't believe that anybody deserves respect per se. I believe that respect is earned. Everybody earns respect. However, I do believe that being tolerant is important. And while I may not agree, and while I may not respect it or disrespect it, I do, however, have to be tolerant, right? I have taken hundreds of hate crime reports, right? And they were almost every single time they were of the community where the person was reporting a hate crime. It's crushing to hear the stories, right, of being treated that way based on, you know, your beliefs and your sexual orientation and whatnot. So what I have always tried to explain to my son is, listen, you don't have to agree, you don't have to disagree, but you do have to be tolerant, right? Meaning that you don't always have to give your opinion, you don't have to speak up, but you don't have to be in places that you don't want to be. And my last little issue is about we're talking about signatures for parents.
Mm-hmm.
I have a huge issue with this. And this has nothing to do with the community. This is just an overall. The schools are out of order because they don't ask you for anything. I don't give a damn if it's Big Bird. I don't give a damn if it's a drag queen. I'm the parent. You should be asking me for every single person that comes through there. Right, I don't care what they do because I should be able to opt out of everything depending on what I want for my child. It doesn't matter what their orientation. It doesn't matter if they're gay, lesbian. It doesn't matter. They could be in there teaching hooked on phonics. I don't care. I should be able to say yes or no. That's all. I appreciate it. It's a great panel.
No problem. Thank you for coming, Trey. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I have a question as a result of something that Trey had brought up too. To the dominant class, how do you actually clear up queer phobia? Y'all don't want drag queens in the school. You don't want them to learn about any significant queer person in history contributing to the growth, the infrastructure, the creation and manifestation of this toe-up ass country. You don't want your boys like exposed to certain people. So like when exactly does the tolerant, respect all people conversation come into play? And can you properly execute a conversation around tolerance and acceptance while also keeping queer people from everybody else? Because you learn how to tolerate based upon relationship and proximity. So lots of people here probably have been taught in Christian households to respect all people. But because those same Christian people were not told and instructed or allowed to break bread with Satanists, probably would run in the opposite direction when they come into contact with someone of another spirituality or somebody of a hoodoo background, etc. So we see the rhetoric of encompass, love everybody, but at the same time, you want to segregate society, and that still leads to actions of division and why people vote in the best interest of themselves and not people who are not like them, etc. So we end up in this same issue. So the reality is a lot of y'all don't want queer people to exist at all.
Thank you.
No. I got an answer for what you said. Because you asked,
I got an answer. It's homophobia and transphobia. We gonna have the real conversation.
Well, hold on, wait, reckless. Conscious, do you go? What's your pronoun?
He, him, bad bitch, her. I don't give a damn about what I'm called.
Okay, all right. I'm just saying.
Okay, Freezy. After Freezy responds.
Okay.
Just keep you. No.
I just want to say this.
After Freezy.
So basically, you said, how can we break the barrier of what you said about something between homosexual and heterosexual people as far as so this is my opinion, right? Now, if everybody remember when I first came up, I said, listen, as a society, in modern day society, we ain't got no choice. We're going forward. It ain't no reversing this shit. Right? So basically, this is my opinion, and I stress that with the big O. So I don't think it should be implemented especially in school systems as a requirement. But I do think it can be incorporated as extracurricular, just like every other thing. I really truly, so that way, if it's extracurricular, right?
Oh, like an elective.
Yes. So
Okay.
if parents,
Okay.
if it's extracurricular, if parents can then make an informed and arbitrary decision for their children, now you're not impeding on other parents that might, just like Trey, who might because listen, let's just be realistic. Everybody ain't gonna be happy. You can't make everybody happy, right? But now what you're doing is you're coming up with a constructive way of handling things, right?
A compromise, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
What you think about that?
Why do y'all make it?
Why do these conversations revolve so much around the children? Because let's be honest, the younger generation.
You heard what Whitney used to say.
The younger generation don't even give a crap to be homophobic and transphobic. They're nothing like their parents in all actuality. These conversations are about y'all. They're about y'all generation. Y'all.
Let's come back to this, if you don't mind.
And what y'all do is y'all hide behind the children in order to push your uninclusive agenda. And I just want us to slide the children out of the way, because the children are never here. The children don't have a problem. The children ain't complaining about nothing but y'all getting in their way. So let's have a conversation with this generation of people. What are y'all afraid of?
Okay,
what's y'all's problem?
Freezy, you started a whole nother conversation.
I'm sorry, man.
Good questions, but everybody.
It's a lot of shit.
I know it's a lot. So it can't be just one conversation. It is about ideas of how to bridge. Again, I'm in the business of building bridges. Okay, how do we build a bridge between heterosexuals and homosexuals, especially within the Black community? That's what I'm trying to do here. We don't have to treat people like trash just because they're different or they like something different than we do. So in order to get to do that, you have to first understand a person's plight. Like, white people didn't believe anything Black people said during the Civil Rights Movement until the cameras came up at the Edmund Pettus Bridge and they saw the cops beating the shit out of Black people. That's when white people are like, oh man, wait, hold up, that's really happening?
Well, for one,
we gotta do something about that.
Well, actually, Mandrell, to your point, they don't want us on TV. So how are we even gonna have that?
They got no
choice. Y'all on TV.
Again, like Frieza said, there's no reversing it. Yeah. You're on TV.
No, but the thing is, let's just have an honest conversation. It's just like, let's just call a spade a spade. Like Consciouz just said, how can y'all say that y'all are inclusive and I have no issue, but yet when it comes down to the conversations of education, you don't want it in the schools. Then on top of that, you guys want to be in control of these conversations with your children. Okay, cool. But then yet when we talk to you guys aren't really well informed. And then on top of that, you guys have your own bias. So you mean to tell me especially when we start getting into the transgenderism, non-binary conversations, if you can't tell me the difference between sex, sexuality, gender, and gender expression, the four basic little things that you must know to have these conversations correctly and safely, but yet you expect a whole community to feel safe with you having a whole conversation with your children on a said subject that you don't know fully anything about. Like, that's like having white people telling us, I don't want to talk to my child about racism in America, but I cannot tell you the difference between nationality, race, and ethnicity. Bitch, you're doomed.
Or I'm not going to be honest about racism, because the conversation that heterosexual people want to have with their children about queer people is not having the conversation. So y'all don't want it in the school, and y'all also not going to Reckless's point, do y'all due diligence at home either. So that's why I asked the question, what is the issue?
All right,
what is the problem?
Cool. We put a plug in that. Stick a pin in it. Auntie TJ, thank you for tuning into my show.
Hey, TJ.
You know I love when you watch my show. As you see with my show as of late, I've taken a different approach as far as the subject matter. I'm looking to teach more so, because I see all these people in the red pill community talking all this blah, blah, blah nonsense about marriage relationships, but no one's teaching anything. Well, a man should do this, a man should do that. Well, no one's teaching you how to be a man, are they? So I took it upon myself to do so. Now I see another issue here with people being treated. And it does kind of remind me of how Black people were treated during the Civil Rights and Jim Crow. I'm just like, okay, there are parallels here. And this is with our own. We can be the most accepting, loving, forgiving. We forgive all the white man for all the nonsense he's done to us all this time. But then when it comes to our own, oh, no mercy. No mercy. So that's what influenced me to do this topic. I'm like, okay, listen, we just too hard on our own. I mean, we keep this up, we'll never get anywhere. So it needs to be addressed. No one's having the conversation. So I figured, why don't I do it myself? So, Auntie TJ, thank you for coming. What do you have for us tonight? I just wanted to let you know what inspired the conversation. That's all.
Well, first to Reckless and Conscious, I want to thank you. I've been listening and I have learned a lot. I'm not going to say I agree with everything, but I don't, but I appreciate how you have articulated some things that I have not considered. And because of that, I thank you. I will tell you that one of my closest friends, she grappled with the fact that her son was gay. And everybody else knew it, but she did not. And I didn't understand how she could not. And because we knew it immediately. And she grappled with that up until her death. And I tried to tell her, I said, regardless of whether you agree with it or not, he's still your son. And acceptance is not necessarily approval. He is your son. And if you want to have a relationship with your son, because a lot of things our children do, we don't approve of, but we accept it, particularly because they're grown. But one of the things I would say when we talk about the children, I do have a concern there, primarily as it relates to what's being taught in elementary schools, is because our children are very impressionable at that age. And there are some things that should not be taught in elementary school, period. To your point, I think it was you, Conscious, that said no discussion of any type of sexuality should be going on in elementary schools. And it shouldn't. Because I remember when my daughter was in elementary school, she wanted to be a rabbit. That means she was going to be a rabbit. Again, children are impressionable. And I think by introducing certain things to them when their brains are still forming is not helping. And I think what is important, I think you all said this, both of you said, is that having conversations that we don't want to have. I didn't want to have those conversations with my daughter. And my daughter was in high school in 2012. But I had to have those conversations with her when her friends were coming to our house. And some of them were gay. Some were lesbian, some were home. And, it was uncomfortable for me. I'm not going to lie, but I wasn't going to tell my daughter, you can't be friends with them because they're homosexual. You can't. So I made them feel home, welcome in my home. But I told her, I said, these are my expectations. These are my values, but you will make ultimately your own decisions. But this is what my value is. This is what I believe. And ultimately she made her own decision. But those conversations are difficult to have. But it is necessary to have them. Yes, sir.
I wanted to ask you a question, TJ, because you just said, and I appreciate everything that you're saying, that your daughter, she might have went through a phase of thinking she was a rabbit, but she didn't grow up to be a rabbit. This is why I don't understand what people are afraid of. because you just articulated that it also doesn't work that way. Like, even if a child is introduced to a drag queen, a trans person, or a raspberry, blueberry, long hair wearing man like myself, that they aren't going to grow up to be any which a way. But I also think it begs the question of what would be the issue with a human being becoming that? What is the issue in the humanity? Are we saying that queer folk don't possess great humanity? Are we saying that queer folk are not integral people, are not loving people, are not kind people, are not empathic people? Because this fear really reduces the issue to that to identify as queer must mean something terrible. Because what else would the fear of young people growing up to be same gender loving or being trans or being non-binary be? And I don't think there's a way to hold that type of belief system without it being an indictment against queer people in and of themselves.
Well, and let me, because I'm 55, and if I don't say that, I'll forget. One thing, going back to the rabbit comment, and the reason why I say that is because the reason why, of course, she didn't grow up to think that she was a rabbit, because I didn't constantly enforce it or reinforce that. Where you have situations in schools that I have heard personally that, for instance, this young girl came home and asked her grandparent, am I gay? And they were like, why? She said, well, I told my friend Sally that she looked pretty, and the teacher said I must be gay. So those are the kinds of things I'm talking about, because I didn't reinforce the fact that she was going to be a rabbit, because one, she was like 6 and she could have grown up to be that, but that's not something that I reassured her or reinforced because she said she wanted to be a rabbit. And the same thing when this little girl is complimenting Sally and says, saying, okay, well, that's nice to compliment your friend. It's in many schools, they're going to, okay, well, you must be this. What if she does grow up to be that, but don't put that in her head? She may be that anyway. But particularly in elementary school, why are we doing that?
Right, I agree with that. Yeah.
That's all.
But TJ, do we not have some fundamental trust in the evolution of a young person's mind to mature, to become self-informed, and to ultimately follow what? Hold on, and to follow what's authentically them? And I say that, right, because guess what was shoved down being reckless's face? Heterosexuality. Guess what was made an agenda in our lives? Guess what the church did try to beat us into the submission of? Heterosexuality, opposite sex attraction. And guess what? It didn't work, because it wouldn't have mattered if you would have enforced to her, she's a rabbit, she should eat lettuce, and you fed a carrot on the table, and you taught her how to bunny hop. That's not something she would have sustained after a certain amount of time, because her own personal consciousness and sense of self would have resurrected itself, as it does in all people. I mean, if we're having a very realistic, down-to-earth conversation, we know that we're also raising our young people to not have premarital sex. We take them to church to make sure they don't do it. We fearmonger them, your legs are going to fall off if you participate in that stuff. We
get pregnant.
Have to do to keep them safe, and we see
they do it anyway.
It doesn't work. We don't want them to dress like this. We don't want them to get their belly pierced, and they go on to do these things anyway, because the authentic self is something that is constantly vibrating, irregardless of what the external doctrines and dogmas and indoctrination attempts are. And we just have to have some faith in young people that our job as the elders, or as the adults, or as the people who disseminate information is that it's just information. We have to divorce this idea that I can control the identity, even of the children, that I make my personal property, that I have no ultimate say so. Did my mom prefer me to be a same-gender loving man? No, the universe didn't give a damn that she didn't want that. That's what she got anyway. That's what came to the canal. And if she would have remained resistant towards that, it just would have been her hurting herself, because it was never her job to trickle in the areas that she thought it was her job to trickle in. And I think a lot of parents with the issue of trans children and same-gender loving children are getting a valuable lesson in where their role stops. Because if you let parents tell it, their role is at all. And it's just not. There's a certain space in all of our humanity that is hours and hours alone. It's between me and God, not me and my mommy, not me and my daddy, not me and my community, but me and the truth of the Creator and whatever that is. And so I think we are we are over concerned about something that's ultimately out of our hands. The best thing we can do is provide the space for communication. The best thing we can do is attempt to educate ourselves, so that when our children can't talk to anybody else about the complexities of their identities in a way that they feel, that they can at least go to mommy and daddy and have a safe haven to cry out to, and to talk about their confusion or their misunderstanding of themselves or what they think is themselves. And we provide the proper love. And I would even say, be brave of heart to in some way take the journey with them of self-discovery, because it's hard self-discovering, period. Even outside of the gay thing, when you're wrestling with your religious beliefs, you might have been taught this, but you identify spiritually this way instead. You know, like it's not something that's exclusive to just LGBT people. We all in our own ways have needed this space, and I think we can be a bit more empathic when it comes to LGBT kids. And all.
Go ahead, TJ.
No, I know you're gonna draw me down, but I just want to say, Conscious, if you will put your information in the back chat, because both of you, the two of you, I really, like I said, I don't agree with everything, but I respect your point, and you've given me some things to think about. And just this, lastly, one of my bonus daughters is gay. You know, one of my nephews is gay, and I love them with everything. And there's some, and you know, I know my husband has grappled with it, but you know, that's his daughter, and that's our daughter. So I would like to talk to you more. So I'm going.
Okay, boo. I just put my email in the back chat.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, love.
Now, Conscious. Let me tell you what I learned about you since I've been up here. You. Let me tell you something, Conscious. You good. You good, dog. You good. Let me tell you. Listen. Okay, so the people that I've noticed that believe in boundaries the least, is the homosexual community. And I'm gonna tell you why. There should be boundaries to everything. There should be some type of boundaries to everything, some type of limitation, right? And you made a profound statement. Why, you know, should we have a certain amount of trust with our kids? Yes, a certain amount of trust with our kids, I do believe, right? But it should be to a certain extent, right? So what I mean by that is, when I was young, Conscious, right? When I was 5 years old, I wanted to go play with the big kids. I'm talking about down the street where the drug dealers was and all that. I wanted to go down there, right? But I felt like I was old enough and mature enough to handle that environment. But my mom and dad provided me with enough guidance to say, Fred, you don't know what the hell you want. You ain't going no damn well, right? So at a certain extent, what I'm saying is, just because a child says and feels like they desire to do this and desire to do that, doesn't mean that we should trust them 100% like they know what the hell they talking about.
It's also but it's also called
I'm sorry.
But it's also called you need to investigate as a parent. I think a lot of times too, when a lot of times the parents believe that whenever they might have queer children or something queer may come up, people like they think that when a child comes to you, be like, oh my God, I think I may be a girl, or I think I may be a girl, and the parents should be like, yes, they just go straight along with it. No. The first time you can be like, okay, you can kind of like brush it off or whatever. But however, if the second, third time, fourth time, fifth time, and it seems to be like a consistent thing, then that's something that you may want to investigate and get more information on. This is not something as in you just hear it one time and be like, okay, it is what it is, because like you said, all the different times, even with my own nieces and nephews, they say a lot of things that they may not always mean. Like the lady that literally just came up talking about the teacher told her that she must have been gay, but even though that her child probably didn't even come out like that, but you know, it's just that when you hear it one time or whatever, that doesn't mean you just, oh my God, you know, I'm just gonna accept it. It's just like, okay, whatever, just investigate, get more.
Gotcha.
I agree with that.
All right, put a pin in it. We got to get the we ain't signing. They got people back.
I agree with what Reckless said.
Right. We ain't signing. Brother from China.
But it's more to that, though.
Brother living in China, we ain't signing. So international call. Thank you. I know it's like 10 a.m. over there.
Hey, first of all, before we ain't signing go, you already know if you don't do the greeting, I'm gonna kick you off. Go ahead.
All right, 大家好，你现在听那个 Black Man Unfiltered， 你可以吃那个小吃，你可以小吃，欢迎光临。All right, there you go.
Thank you.
You said nigga about 3 times, but
you did in Chinese. We all heard. Okay.
So first, shout out to Mr. Bennett. All praises, Freezy, to the Most High. Shalom, my brother.
Shalom.
Mandrell, hope you're doing well. Shoo, shame on you. Shout out to the two esteemed guests. And I just have one simple question, I guess, and I'll frame it this way. is that I'm hearing like when you guys are talking, you're talking about how this is like heterosexual people or people in the patriarchy have some sort of fear when it comes to children and things like that. So I just want to say two things, and then I'll listen to your response. Is first, when we're talking about elementary children, heterosexual parents have demonstrated in the past that they're not open with any type of sexual type of discussion. For example, in the 90s, when they wanted to introduce sex education to elementary school students, heterosexual sex education, parents were against that. When they wanted to introduce condoms into the school and high schools, parents were against that. So, and we know that communication is not only verbal, but it's all, 80% is nonverbal. So when we're having, people who are advocating for LGBTQI situations reading to children, right? How can you not see that that is exposing them to another sexuality when communication is 80% nonverbal? And my second question would be this. We talk about inclusivity and we talk about understanding. Well, let me take away.
Hold on a minute. Can we answer? Like, can we respond before people run into?
I want to give my two because I want to give my two because I'm going to get dropped down in a minute and a half. So I won't be able. So that's why I just want to give it now, and I'll probably get dropped off. Okay. So when we talk about I don't want to talk about inclusion because you have to agree to being inclusive. When we talk about acceptance and respecting one another, which is fine, but can you see from a heterosexual standpoint when we're forced to talk about pronouns and using new vocabulary as cisgender and even now when we talk about I want my kids to be heterosexual, that's taboo, right? That's a taboo thing to say, right? So if you're okay with your children being whatever they want to be, and I'm supposed to respect that, why can't you respect my beliefs of wanting my kids to be heterosexual? Thank you.
Because your child is not a chichia pet. Your child is not a Build-A-Bear. Your child is not, I want you to have blue eyes and you're going to be heterosexual. The difference between what we're saying and what you're saying is that I want my child to be heterosexual. What we're saying is that we do not care what our child becomes. We're giving our child the autonomy and the freedom to become who they want to become. Because as long as they're not hurting anyone, we're giving them that autonomy. We're allowing them to make that decision instead of us trying to put expectations on them. They're telling us, we're not telling them.
Yeah, the problem. Yeah, like that's once again a weird conflation of the issues. Like queer people don't have a problem with what everybody else is. Everybody else has a problem with what queer people are. So it's not a. The two are not mutually exclusive. And in terms of the school situation, we've already discussed that sexuality is not contagious. So I don't.
Yeah. But even in his answer, he literally did the exact same thing that you said. But what was going to happen is that even when you have drag queens in the schools, not naked, reading to children, the first thing that pops into their head is sexuality and sex and all these different things. They're reading. They are reading a book to children. They're not showing porn. They're not doing all of those things. They're reading a book.
Okay, let's get to dirty folks. Dirty folks. What you got on the subject?
Can I say one more thing too, please? Because I'll be kind of cute. And here's another thing that's getting my fucking nerve too. Like y'all literally get in. Like y'all literally get in these spaces. Y'all literally get in these conversations. And you guys literally combat the tactics to humanize a group of people, but yet you literally dehumanize the same group of people. Talk about, I don't want my child to learn about different people that they're going to be around. And talk about, I don't want them to know about the pronouns and all these different things. But yet, if you talk to a lot of queer people, you're saying your children are the same homophobic children calling us F words in the classroom. We're the same, because here's the thing, homophobia and that transphobia, it does not only affect queer people, it affects heterosexual people as well, because it's not only just closeted queer people bullying other queer people. It's heterosexual people as well, transphobes and homophobes bullying queer people. So the same way, especially if we know that we're all melanated, and with you being melanated, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna be around other melanated people. You're gonna be in melanated schools. You're gonna be in melanated churches. You're gonna be in a melanated community for the majority of melanated people, which means that statistically, you're gonna have one person, typically might be the queer person, in the grave, and the other one in jail, being another statistic. So which one do you want? Do you want to humanize people and to make sure that your son and your daughter stays out of jail, or do you want to keep teaching them these tactics?
That's a crazy analogy. Do you want your son to suck dick or go to jail? That's a crazy analogy.
And you heard nothing I said. Cognitive dissonance.
That's what you
heard nothing that I said.
Okay. So now, dirty folks, what's your question or statement?
Check this out, because I'm on your side. I think that was a crazy ass analogy, but I'm on your side. I am a true supporter of the LGBT movement. I am a true supporter. I even got crayons. I'm trying to take the rainbow back for my toddlers, but I even got crayons. Look, and the reason I'm a true fan and proponent is because you guys are gay first, and black is for women, gays, and felons. So you guys are as black as it gets without, getting the reconstructive surgery. But here's the problem I have, because y'all keep going back to kids, and nobody even says kids. Y'all keep bringing kids up. So I got a story about sexualizing people. This is my dad's story about me that I remember now because he keeps telling it, but it's a true story. At 3 years old, I liked a girl in preschool. I knew I liked this girl. Her name was Tiffany. I liked Tiffany. I didn't know what I was going to do with Tiffany. I thought I would kiss her. I'm 3 years old, but maybe 4. But I know I like Tiffany. And I like this other girl whose name I can't remember. My dad told me, hence infinite baby boomer cuckness, you should get her some flowers. So I go outside and I pluck 12 wild flowers. They were purple wild flowers, and I wrapped them up in aluminum foil because I ain't had no wax paper. I didn't know. I was 3-4 years old. And then I was like, oh shit, I like this other girl in school. So I picked 12 dandelions because I thought dandelions was flowers because I'm 3-4 years old, right? So I go to school the next day, and the next day my teacher's name was Miss Stone, and Miss Stone looked absolutely delicious. She was thicker than gyro meat. So I ended up giving Miss Stone the purple flowers, and I ended up
How old were you, can I ask?
3-4 years old. This preschool.
Oh, preschool. But kids don't have an orientation. Got you. Makes sense.
People have a preference. I didn't have a sexual orientation. I just know what I like.
Yeah.
But this is where I'm going. I'm helping you out. I'm helping you out, so we can go check it out. So I ended up giving the teacher the purple flowers, ended up giving Tiffany the dandelions, and I remember crying at recess because Tiffany wouldn't play with me at recess after I gave her my flowers. I say that to say this. If a kid had, because I don't think that women should teach in schools, period. But I don't think that women should teach boys, period. But they do. So if women can do it, gays can do it. Now, here's my thing with that. But here's my problem. Here's my problem with everything that you guys are saying. Because if you look at how school works, 47% of black boys get kicked out of public school or out of co-ed school. But 97% of black boys in all boys schools graduate. So girls are a distraction from top to bottom. The teachers who put you on Prozac or Ritalin because they don't want to hear you talk. The girls who distract you from class, all that. That's the communal thing. That's whoever said it, Mandrell, whoever who said, man, if you're a good kid, but his best friend sell dope and he decided to sell dope to fit in, he's gonna be a dope dealer. All those things, you know what I'm saying? Anytime you add 2 or more women, everything fucked up. In my life, if I don't know what I want to do with my life, I ask 3 black women. If 2 or more black women agree, I do the opposite. It always works out.
Yes, you better blame
1 minute. You got 1 minute. 1 more minute.
So the only thing to me personally that's
is this about women or gays?
No. The only thing that I'm about to land the plane. The only thing dumber than me personally than listening to a girl with clothes on is listening to a man overcompensate to be a girl. So when I tell you that everything you just said is a lie, it's a lie. We grew up with androgynous parents, which as an adult I realized they was gay as shit, Earth, Wind, and Fire ass, but they called it androgynous. Prince with the chap pants, nobody cared. Dude that I grew up with, we knew he was the same way I knew I liked Tiffany in preschool. We knew Teddy absolutely was gay, but nobody cared. Plus, Teddy had hands. Teddy be
How
so
you
ass.
go? Hold
So
up.
I'm saying, no. What I'm saying is nobody messed with gays in the 80s or the 90s or the 2000s. Nobody messed with them, good or bad.
That's a lie.
Gays mess with you. Gays come to me and say, yo, I only like straight dudes. I'm like, how the fuck you gay? You like straight dudes? If you suck a straight dude dick, he ain't straight. He gay. Y'all harass other people. Nobody messes with you. It's
here we go. Here we go. That reverse psychology.
I'm gonna disagree with that. I'm gonna
It's that reverse psychology. Lace up, Lace up.
I'm gonna disagree with that.
It is reverse psychology. All of a sudden, heterosexual people are the victims. All of a sudden, heterosexual people are the people that are being messed with by queer people. All of a sudden, heterosexual people, queer people are the ones making the laws against heterosexual people. Like y'all, like this is that reverse psychology bullshit that I be talking about.
Okay.
Can I just take it real quick? I think a big misconception with people in the gay community is this conception that this ideology that like gay men. Just because he's gay and he's a man, he wants all the men. Or just because she's gay and she's a woman, she wants all the women, as if they don't have preferences between like men and what the kind of men they like or the kind of women they like. And they have preferences just like heterosexual people have preferences. You know what I mean? So I just really think that that's one misconception that just really needs.
Well, see what Dirty Folk left out was. Listen, we got to be fair and balanced, man. He said he mentioned in the 80s and the 90s, right? True. It was less accepted to come out back then, right? But at the same time, it was a lot of niggas in the closet that was knocking on them back doors in the back of the house, sneaking through the window. It was a lot of quote unquote heterosexual guys sneaking through them back doors back then, messing with the homosexual community. So we can't discount. I'm not just gonna sit up here and say gay people was the only one harassing heterosexual people. No, it was a lot of guys that didn't want to be exposed.
Gotcha.
But you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Well, his phone he said just let us know his phone is on like 9%, so he only has a few seconds, I guess. IG,
hold on, Madrell. See what they saying in the chat. Freezer, you was at the back door. See, you can't even talk. You can't even talk.
Right.
Hey, Reckless, you right, Reckless. It's on both sides. That ignorant ass shit. You right, Reckless.
Dumbass.
Yeah. IG, let's get
dumbass.
Let's get IG in here. IG, what do you have to add to the conversation, man? Thanks for coming.
What's up? I'm on 7%. Yeah, I've been waiting back to check for like an hour. You heard me, but it's just I kind of find it interesting that they keep mentioning the children in the context, and this is one thing that I just want to give some nuance. Throughout societies, in Western and Eastern societies, heteronormatives sexualize children because lest we forget that it was perfectly institutionalized and legal for grown men to marry 12 and 10-year-old girls. So if we're going to talk about the concern and the integrity of this country and what's about the children, where was the heteronormative society all the way up until maybe the last 50 or 60 years where it wasn't okay for grown men to legalize children? I just want to point that out. Just understand that heteronormatives sexualize children and institutionalize. So if you want to talk about pedophilia agendas, well, that's something that's been going on in integrity and Eastern and Western societies for centuries and millennia. So we can't unring that bell. I also wanted to mention to the sister JJ, I appreciate what she was saying. She said something. Well, the teacher said that my daughter is gay. Let me give y'all a news flash. Heterosexuals project that on children. It's like one of those things to where, if a boy or girl does something that's different, y'all are the ones to insert, hey, you must be gay. Hey, you must be a girl. And then you have the nerve to wonder why then. Well, you said based off of somebody's expression, they didn't change their clothes. But if they talk or they do certain way, you projected that that's a sexuality thing going on to a prepubescent child. So I just wanted to give some context that that's not something that before the LGBTQ movement ever came around, sexualizing and naming children and labeling children and labeling children is something that has went on. The only difference is now, instead of people just calling your name for you, even though that's not something you're thinking about as an asexual child, the difference is that we are now taking our own voices. But before that, y'all were the ones to make the distinguishment and to label children in such manners. There was no LGBTQ moment that's nowhere in antiquity where you're going to find where, yeah, gee whiz, there was a whole institutionalized law in society where men could marry 6, 7 year old boys. So I just kind of want to kind of give that like nuance to that conversation. I had more to say here, but I'm gonna have to start walking a little bit. I appreciate the panel. I just want y'all to speak to that. You know, if you want to speak to that, I appreciate my brothers Reckless and Conscious and Mondrell and everybody else on the panel. You heard me. I'm gonna be listening to y'all when I get home and get to the charger when I leave the plantation.
All right, IG, thank you for coming. Appreciate it. You on the plantation. Y'all want to speak to that, or we can get right to Presley if you want.
Yeah, I want to. I think that's a great question. Why are the dominant class creating laws that still exist where the age of consent is 16 in most states in this country, where even children can, by their parents' permission, be given over to marriage? 13, 14-year-old young people today in the state of New York, etc., can be given over to marriage. So why, and this is what I talk about when I mean that there's a double standard. There are very much so things for people to be concerned about. Most of those things are already in your legislation and have already been greenlit by your government. And yet we fearmonger and fantasize about whatever the thoughts and feelings and agendas and the appetite of queer people is in this country. So where is the conservative heterosexual outcry for the same government that has legislated pedophilic marriages or emancipations by teenage people over to the hands of other adults for further exploitation in this country? Where is the outcry? Where is the congressional hearing? Where are these panels that are confronting those ills in this country about what the dominant society has created? Where is it? Because we have no problem doing this when it comes to gay people. Where is it?
I have no answer for that, but it's a strong point. I was Logic, you're muted. Yeah, like I said, it's a strong point because kids can get their parents' permission to be put in someone else's care and marry that person before the age of consent. That's in a lot of states that law still stands. Yeah. Like Courtney Michelle has a question. She says, "Where's that?"
Hold on. Wait.
New York for one of them.
But Mandrell, is that what Conscious just said? Is that more of an anomaly?
No, my thing is this. My thing is this. Like, here's why I agree with him. Why is that law still in the books? Why is that still something that's legal?
Well, is it going the other way though? Because if you go back generations and generations ago, women getting married at young ages was normative. But it seems like we define marriage later. Okay, now everyone's saying in these spaces now, wait till you 30, wait till you 35. Right. But back in my mom's time, if you weren't married by 18, you were considered like an old maid or whatever. So was the normative from thousands of years ago where women, when you became, when you had your first period, was that was the time when you were considered marriageable at that time. Society has changed to say, make it older, you get to get educated, you have to do whatever. So has that, so we're sort of demonizing when a girl gets married at 16, but our parents or grandparents' generation, that wasn't the thing. So who changed? Did the laws change to make our children more sexualized, or did we change to push the bar down, kick marriage down the road to say, wait till you're 30, 35? So I think that's a slippery slope also, because we don't know, we're society is imposing standards on when's the right age to be married or whatnot. Maybe we should be examining that as well.
Yeah, but you can explain
35. I mean, that's
Mr. Bennett, right. Yeah, Mr. Bennett, let's be honest. You can explain that away scientifically as well. I mean, throughout antiquity, we've had kings that took the throne at 8 years old.
But it's an 8-year-old child. I mean, and those kings were easily manipulated. People allowed that to happen because the people in that king's court knew that they can influence and manipulate the young king to do what they want and serve their needs. There was agendas there. My thing is with this is like, we're not talking about 16-year-olds. Okay, there are kids, little girls who like emancipated from their parents and got their parents' permission to emancipate and be under this other guy's into a man's care at 14 years old.
Right.
It was years ago when I read this story, and she was 14 years old.
The world, that's normal.
I know, but the thing is,
maybe
it's a personal thing for me.
I agree with Mr. Bennett.
I get it.
That's normal thing. Again, when a woman hit puberty, you were a woman then. We used to have a quinceañera with the Latinos, the Sweet 16.
Exactly.
That was supposed to be your coming out party to say, I am now making eligible people for marriage at 16. So
they don't know anything at that age. They still don't know anything at that age, though. It's 16.
I'm saying, but is that a problem? But again, is that a reflection on our society that we're raising people who are not maturing at those earlier ages? Again, 2 generations ago, 16, you knew how to do stuff. 17, 18, you knew how to, if you could go to war, if you could fight in World War I or World War II, you were man enough to get married. But now we're saying you got to be 35, or you got to, people aren't growing up. You in your 20s, and you're still playing Xbox and video games until you're 30 years old before you take your life seriously. So again, is that so? Society is pushing maturity or those responsibilities down the road.
I agree with that. I agree.
So we're not. So again, we're moving away from what biology or what nature says is.
That's why I said science can.
People
we can prove that with science.
To be engaged in these things. We're calling it perverted, but that's we don't have control over when these things happen. When you're biologically ready for that,
right?
Society changed that, but nature didn't change.
Okay, let's get to Presley.
Mr. Bennett got gangster, dog.
Yeah, Presley, this is your first time on my show. I would like to welcome you and thank you for coming.
Thank you for welcoming me. No I just wanted to ask questions just based on what you guys were saying on the panel. The first question I have is there was a woman up here who said that she recognized that her friend's child was not heterosexual when they were young, but then in continuing on, literally 1 minute, less than 1 minute longer in her conversation, she said that that little kids shouldn't be influenced and little kids don't know what they want. My kid, I'm not sure what the term she used, but like my kid wanted to be a unicorn and they can't be a unicorn, but yet you recognize that your friend's child was not heterosexual at a young age, but yet she disagreed with children recognizing that in themselves. So that's what I had a question about.
I don't think that's what she said.
I found that weird. She did. She said that I recognize. She said everybody around my friend recognized.
She's in the chat right now. That's why I'm.
Okay.
She said he was a teenager.
She said child, but if she's saying teenager now, child or teenager, she said I don't understand how my friend didn't recognize that her child wasn't heterosexual, but yeah, she went on to say I think that kids could be influenced to be a certain way, so that just didn't match up for me.
I think she was talking about 2 different situations. You conflating 2 different situations. One situation she was talking about was being careful about why parents are and should be so concerned about what is being taught in school because children are impressionable. And then the other situation was she was there she is.
If you clarify if you like. I'm not. I don't presume to speak for you.
I was going to speak for you.
You want to clarify yourself? Go ahead.
Yeah.
But also, I wanted to say, there was also someone up here who said that they didn't like being called cisgendered, which is literally the medical term for how you were born, and it's like, how can you not want to be called your medical term for what you were born? and not understand that transgender women don't want to be called their medical term of male from when they were born as well. So I'm just like, if you don't want to be called by your medical term, how can you not understand that transgender women don't want to be called by their medical term either?
I also think it's.
Allow me to
Hold
clarify.
on. Yeah, if you would give her a chance to clarify. Thank you, TJ.
Allow me
you
to
got the floor.
clarify. When I said her child, because my daughter is 28, but she's still my child. Okay. So when I said I met her, I knew her child was gay, and I couldn't understand how she couldn't. And when I met him, he was 15, 16, 17, something like that. It was obvious. It was obvious. And, you know, it was obvious not just to me, but to many of us. And that, you know, how could she not see? So when I said child, I meant her child, not that he was a baby.
Okay, either way.
And with respect to the cisgender, to be honest, I had never heard of this idea of cis woman up until the last couple of years. Ever. It was either woman or you wasn't. So this idea of cis, this is something that is completely new to many of us. Maybe that is the correct term. I'm not saying that it is or isn't, but because there was never a need to qualify, that's why it is a problem. It was never a need to qualify a biological woman versus a transgender woman. So many women, biological women, do take exception with it because we never had to qualify our state of being before.
And that's what I'm saying. It's the same thing as white people, because when a white person calls themselves everybody else, you're Asian American, you're African American, even though we're all Americans, there's nobody calls white people white American, European American. You know what I mean? And so if we did start doing that, they would have a problem, just like we have a problem. Well, a lot of us, I see, me personally, I don't have a problem with being called a cisgendered woman, but just like we have a problem with being called a cisgender woman, it's kind of it's the same thing, you know, like it's literally the same thing. Like being called a cisgendered woman, you're like, wait, no, I was called a woman all this time. And if we start calling white people white Americans, they'll be like, no, I'm an American, even though everybody else is African American, Mexican American, all this other stuff. We're all still Americans, but yet white people will have a problem with being called white American. So I just think it's a problem with labels and everything like that. And I just think that it is terrible to take away, because there was a man out here who said who he knew he was attracted to when he was a child, and there was a grown woman on here, you yourself, and even though you cleared it up and said that they weren't like babies, that they were a teenager, you still recognize that at an underage point that person was not a heterosexual. You knew that. So I don't understand what the issue is when these teenagers, I first I was talking about babies, but even when they're teenagers, people still have issues with them recognizing who they are at an underage. Like if you can recognize that, why do you think that they can't recognize that themselves? If you can see that that boy is gay, if you can see that girl is a tomboy, quote unquote, and she gonna grow up and be this or whatever, then why do you think that they can't recognize that in themselves? Like, I don't get that.
Who want to take that? Cause I
want to fill in something super quick. I'm surprised that I too am a little shocked when there's pushback against the cis term
word.
Because just to help people to kind of understand it in a practical sense, just think of cis as your way of saying I'm not transgender, because that's basically what cis is a reference for. Cis identifies you as a biological, natural born woman. It says that I was born a female and I identify as woman. So it's just another way of distinguishing yourself for those who want the separation, because there does seem to be a pushback between cis women and trans women in terms of some cis women don't accept trans women. They don't want trans women in their space. They don't think that trans women should, exist in their space. And so, well, now there's a term since we have trans women, we have cis women, and this is a term for those male and females who are saying, hey, I'm not of the trans experience, etc. But
and I also think I also think it's very funny that as well too, because especially throughout this conversation, people talk about scientific, we're scientific, but then yet when you have the scientific term, I don't want to use that. So I'm like, okay, so which one is it? Do you want the science or do you not?
Exactly. Exactly. Because hold on. Because transgender women don't want to be called by their scientific term of male. So if you can't respect, so they don't want to be called, if they don't want to be called by male the same way you don't want to be called by cisgender women. So if you're gonna, if you're not going to respect them not wanting to be called male, then you need to do it on the flip side too. Like, you can't just be like, I don't want to be called a cisgender woman, but then not respect them saying that I don't want to be called a male.
I want to be clear too. Like, I only use cis and trans in conversation pieces like this, but I don't refer to trans women as trans that I know in real life. I refer to them as she, as by their name. I refer to cis woman as by her name, etc. These terms really are just for the sake of inclusivity when it comes to conversations like this, so that everybody has room, because we do make the distinction between biology and identity. Like, female is what the cis, female or male is what the cis is for, but we know that man and woman are social constructs. Like, TJ Randolph is a cis woman. Okay, she's and the woman part, right, is nuanced, because she's not like any other woman. She's a Black woman. She is an American woman. She's a Christian woman. These are the things that flood into her identity as woman, and she shows up in her gender expression and identity is woman. Okay, she presents like a woman. She is biologically female, and the social construct of woman is also the social construct. This is where trans people are flooding into the social construct. Trans people are clear that they are not biologically male or female, but they do identify and exist on the spectrum of man and woman, of masculine and feminine. And there are human beings who are closer to the feminine spectrum or closer to the masculine spectrum, to the point that it's organic for them to show up and live as the sex they identify as. And I think that that's also a separate conversation from sexuality. And I think that goes into more of a energy and a consciousness, more so than anything else. And I've always argued that the whole trans thing is going over the heads of Western Americans, because the trans and non-binary manifestation is a spiritual one. But because we are a left-brain country who thinks scientifically and rationally, we keep looking for the facts, keep looking for the absolute. We keep looking for the math in order to justify trans people and non-binary people's existence. But this is a purely spiritual phenomenon, in my opinion. It is one of consciousness. It is a psychic knowledge. You are not going to be able to pull the trans gene out of a trans man or trans woman, or pull the non-binary gene, because this is more of these things come through our psyche. We are both spiritual and human, but for whatever reason in the West, we only account for the parts of ourselves that we can measure. And then when other people exist and show up and live in a way that the math or the science says is otherwise, we devalue that while also still identifying as a spiritual people. So we just be all over the place in this country when it comes to it all. We don't know whether we're spiritual, whether we're human. We flippantly use these things conveniently. It's a mess.
Consciouz, you about to have a fit down here.
But also
we do have. Sorry, Presley. We do have one other guest we have to get to. So
go ahead
real quickly, Presley, and then we're gonna get to Beautifully Animated Speaks.
Okay, I was going to say that also brings me to another point that was brought up, which is we're all Black first. As you guys have mentioned, there have been people of the LGBT community that has basically started and spearheaded to get our justice, and yet you guys still SHIT on them, which is crazy to me. And I don't get it, because it's always Black first when it comes to anything outside of a Black straight man. When a woman has an issue and she's like, this is a woman's issue, and it's you're Black first. If a Black gay person or a Black person of the LGBT community has an issue with what they're being discriminated against, and it's, oh, you're Black first. But when it comes to police brutality, which in the percentages mostly affects Black straight men, then you guys come and you're like, oh, I got this issue. You're never told you're Black first. Your Black first is always told to women and people of the LGBTQ community, and I don't get that. So when you say I'm Black first, what I hear, because what the actions and the responses give, is Black straight man first. You don't matter.
Wait, come on. Wait. See, this what I'm saying, like, Presley. Listen.
Oh Lord.
With all due respect.
I agree with her.
Are you Black? Presley?
Yes, I'm Black.
Okay, you Black first, Presley. Okay, biologically and scientifically, we're trying to reinvent the wheel. You're Black first. That's just a fact.
Yeah, I get that part, but what I'm saying is that the Black community only says you're Black first when you have issues and you're not a Black straight male. If you have an issue when you're a Black woman, then it's, oh, put that to the side, you're Black first. If you're Black and you're a part of the LGBTQ community, put that to the side, you're Black first. That is what I'm saying.
Okay, so two things can be.
Let me stop.
What I'm saying is that I don't think it needs to be a war. I think we just need to start utilizing common sense.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be a war either, and that's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is, when a Black woman comes to you and says, I'm having this issue because I'm a Black woman, you should go and support her. And when a Black LGBTQ community, anyone a part of that community, comes to you and says, hey, I'm having this issue, you should go and support them and not say you're Black first. That is what I'm saying.
The reason why Black first works is because there's a common ground with that. Everybody does not agree with your view of sexuality, but where everybody can come together at a common ground is your race.
Black straight males. That's what I'm saying. Because when a Black straight male comes and says, hey, I'm having this issue with police and being profiled, nobody says you're Black first. Nobody says that. But when a person is profiled because they're a Black woman or a Black person, a part of the LGBT community, then they are always told you're Black first. Black straight men never have that issue, is what I am saying.
What she's saying is that it's always used as a deflective, a dismissive tactic a lot of the times, because that's one of the annoying things that us as melanated queer people have to hear is like, because let me just call a spade a spade. So I watched the panel that you guys did in the past. You guys can see me, hear me? Okay, so I've seen a panel that you guys did in the past and stuff on homosexuality, and I did my homework on you guys and stuff. And this whole, so I forgot exactly who, but multiple times on that panel, people kept saying, I don't understand why, some queer people don't understand why they're black first. I'm like, do y'all not understand? We understand that we're melanated. It's just that y'all don't understand that. And what I mean by that, in these conversations, people like to dress it up. We know that you're black. We understand that you're black. But then yet, when you start to hear the stories and get the actual stories of black trans women being murdered on the street, we don't get no, oh my God, justice, justice. What they get is Bible scriptures. What they get is that is what you get. What they get is you never should have tricked somebody. These are the actions that shows us that it does not matter.
His
internet it doesn't matter that we're. Oh wait, 1 second. It doesn't matter that we're black. Okay, I'm gonna try to wrap this up. It doesn't matter that we're black first. It's just that whenever, let's just say we are black first, but those other intersections always seem to take the forefront, and why people always want to dismiss us. And I'm just gonna leave it there. That's it.
A prime example of that is that every time.
But I understand what you were saying though.
Every time, hold on, wait a minute. Every time that I'm in spaces, because I have these pro-black, super woke ass black supremacist conversations all the time, and I'm in black spaces. I don't even lead with my sexuality or lead with anything. But as soon as black people see this, then my black is not first. This is first for them. My whatever they have interpreted to be my sexuality is first, and then the conversation gets hijacked by that rather than having a real black ass conversation, which is what I'm interested in. So to Reckless's point, there's no way for any of us to refute, deny, reject the fact that we are black, our mothers and fathers are black, our cousins are black, we know we're black, but because of the issue of queer phobia, the dominant class does not accept that, because ultimately the dominant class does not care, nor do they want, love, welcome, and give a damn about black queer people.
Well, let me clear this up, because I don't want to keep harping on this, because this really, to me, it's a simple subject matter. If you were attacked or physically harmed because of your sexuality, yes, it needs to be highlighted, right? But if you want a police stop and you was racially profiled just like Freezy, yeah, it need to be a black issue. Nobody's going to go out their way and highlight that you was a trans or a queer. No, I don't think that's black. But I'm black. So I think I don't even know why this is a discussion.
Because I'll tell you why it's a discussion, Freezy. Earlier it was highlighted that with the LGBTQ community and with the woman community, that white people and people of color are separated, and that our right, even though there's an LGBT, support going on, it does not include the black people of that when it comes to black women, when it comes to,
I think that's a bigger problem within, I think, to me, this is my opinion, I think that's a bigger problem within the queer community.
And
but that's what I'm saying.
Hold on a second. Well, if
black people of the queer community are still black. You should still cover them.
Got it. Give me 1 second. I think that now here's the thing. If we're ever gonna support them on anything, I think it should be that. I think straight people in the black community should rally behind gay black people when it comes to getting the same things that white LGBTQ members get. If there's a difference there, if there's something that they're being shorted on, I think all of the cisgender black members of the black community should rally behind them and support them, because that's discrimination. And with our history with discrimination in this country, like, how do we stand back and watch black people get discriminated against whether they're in a part of a subsect of subsect of society or not, because we call it the LGBTQ community. You know what I'm saying? And it's a culture or whatever. That's what some people describe it as, but it doesn't matter if it's a black person in peril. Why are we not backing them up?
I agree, Mandra, and that's why I said earlier to you, Amandra, well, to the panel at large, that there is active racism in the LGBT experience. Our Caucasoid peers, there is no intersectionality within the whole liberation for queer people. The liberation has been for LGBT white men and women and white trans people. That has nothing to do with the black sector of queerness. Okay, so all of that progress and revolutionariness and all of that has happened for them, not for
that's what thank you, Conscious. That's what I was saying.
But I also just want to say, to Presley's point, the reason why same-gender lives have to be specifically highlighted when it comes to injustice or trans people, to like her point, because that's birthed out of the fact that the black community does not accept the lives of same-gender loving people or queer people, which is why the initial Black Lives Matter plight was to provide proper space for emphasizing what happened to this intersectional community that the black community constantly has a hands-off attitude about. If it wasn't for that division, then there would be no need, to your point, Frizzy, for it to be unique, or if it need to be particularly necessary to say that this is a trans black woman who was killed or a same gender loving man or woman who was killed. But because of the issue of division and queer phobia within the black community, unfortunately, you get these subcultures and then you get these classes of people that need to be protected within a protected class of people.
I totally agree with that. Everybody deserves respect. Everybody does. You know what I'm saying?
Beautiful Head Speaks. I'm sorry that I was only able to get you here at the end, baby girl, but we've unpacked a lot in this.
Hey, Madrell, before we go, I got to touch on this before we go, because
I know.
Listen. Conscious. See, can I call you CT?
Yeah.
CT touched on something earlier. I'm talking about soon as I cammed up and we never revisited.
Okay.
Conscious said something, and he gave stats. He gave not a stat, but he gave some so-called factual information and a study or whatever. But I wanted to revisit that because it's very important. But go ahead, man, Joe, do your thing, do your thug thizzle.
Appreciate it. But we'll get back to that right after Beautiful Animated Speaks contributes. Beautiful Animated Speaks. You see, we've been through it. We unpacked a lot, and we still got something to go. So obviously, this will not be our last time having this conversation. Clearly. We are going to do a part 2 and probably a part 3 and 4 as well. Okay. So Beautifully Animated Speaks.
So one thing I'll say is, hi everybody. But no, one thing I'll say is something to think about is if we don't ask our straight children why they like somebody, why are we asking about the LGBT? Why do we ask them how they really know that they're gay? We don't ask, straight kids about the reasons they like who they like. So it's just something to think about.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. And also, Mike Brown.
Wait. I need to ask my question.
I'm sorry,
no problem. So my question is it's more so curiosity, because it's not something that bothers me, but it's something that I paid attention to when I was growing up. We always say trans women or trans men, and we knew what we were talking about. So why is it we're using cis now?
Well, I mean, I can't answer that.
Nope. Presley, I want Conscious and Reckless to answer the question.
Oh, we're using cis now because it's for especially for those who claim to be very inclusive and accepting of trans people. It's a way to be inclusive in these conversations of okay, because even if I say woman, you can be like, okay, we have all different types of women. Is she a black woman, Asian woman, cis woman? Is she a trans woman? So it's just a way of being inclusive in the language, because a lot of times, especially in the past, when it comes down to having these conversations, it was very dismissive when it came down to trans experience, and also when it comes down to non-binary people. And that's the reason why I kind of said in the genesis, somewhere up in this live, somewhere up in here, I said somewhere along the lines of is that heterosexual cisgender people, they a lot of times they control the narrative. And the narrative is that they only existed. And since now we're realizing, well, we've been already realized, but now it's been pushed to the forefront that transgender people do exist, non-binary people do exist. And but however, the thing is that now we have to tip the scale to also have language that's very inclusive for these individuals as well.
I agree with being more definitive in these days and times. Let me tell you something, because
okay, hold up, Freezy.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just after Freezy goes, we're gonna go to final thoughts because I got the alarm. We have to end the stream for the night. I apologize, gentlemen. If you want to hang
up
after
for an after show afterwards.
Right. If you want to hang up for the after show, I've gotten messages from people saying, "Hey, can I come to the after show?" Yes, you can come to the after show. I'll send you the link. All right. But Freezy, you go ahead, and then we'll move on to final thoughts.
Yeah, so I think we need to be more definitive in these modern days and times, because listen, I didn't even get to ask this question, but I was going to ask CT and Reckless, you know, if a person actually completely transformed from one sex to another, do they think that person has an obligation or responsibility to tell their significant other who they used to be? Do you think that person has the responsibility to disclose that information, even though you know they're per se went through a full transformation? You know what I'm saying? As far as you can't you can't even tell the difference. We done seen a lot of times you can't tell the difference once they go through this full transformation. But this guy, they just say this guy that's dating this woman who's trans, but she looks like straight up 100% woman. He think he dating a woman. He think he's with a woman. Do you think that trans person has the responsibility to disclose who they used to be?
Well, he is with a woman. He's not with he isn't with a female, but he is with a woman. But I will say that that's such a loaded question, and since we on a short amount of time, are you subscribed? Are you subscribed to my channel, Freezy?
No, I just met you.
I'm gonna put the link to my channel in the back chat, and we're gonna have an after show, and then I'll just divulge all of my thoughts about that on the after show.
And one more thing, Mandrill. I want to say this. I want to say this right here.
Okay.
This might be politically incorrect, and this not going to be popular. I want to say this.
Final thoughts.
Now, Consciouz said something earlier. We were talking about this is a touchy subject, but we were talking about sexual abuse and how that could be a stimulant with children. And CT gave me some. He gave me some information earlier, or the whole panel, that there's been a study saying that even though that child went through that, it was basically a catalyst for who that child basically was already in the beginning, but it just was induced. Am I saying that right, CT?
Basically, yeah.
Okay, but I wanted to subscribe to this, right? We can't throw out the fact that influence is still real, right? Like anybody can be influenced to do anything. And if a person is introduced, no matter what age it is, if a person is introduced to something, especially when they're very impressionable, right? It's very possible to shape some, because you just talked about spirits earlier. You just talked about spirits earlier, CT, and I actually agree with you. It's very possible to shape someone's mentality and spirit at a young age, especially when they're impressionable. And I know you want to get in there, but pause. But I know you want to respond. But I want to say this. The reason why I say that is because of this. When you're dealing with a controlled environment, right? And I'm gonna liken it to prison. If you take, and I know a lot of people will say, well, he was already gay, right? But I'm gonna subscribe to this. If you take a dude that caught 20 years or life, and he basically in the dick factory for the rest of his life. He ain't gonna be exposed to no more vagina for the rest of his life. But this dude still got sexual urges, right? A lot of guys have given in to their sexual urges, and what they call it is, because they call it gay for the stay, and I'm pretty sure y'all have heard that before.
Okay,
and so what I'm saying is that you can be subject to a certain controlled environment that can actually influence you to be a certain way, even though realistically in the beginning you really wasn't that way spiritually or mentally, psychologically.
Can I say something?
I don't want to say that. I just want to insert this. It's once again, like we can't be anecdotal. Like we can't be anecdotal here. The arguments have to work in all directions, because just like we can account for men who succumb to bussy popping in prison because that's their only option, we also have to account for those men who do long stints in prison who never have any same gender loving encounter, and women who are in prison who never also succumb to having same gender experiences. And we know plenty of those men and women who have did over a decade in prison and continue to use their hand and their lotion and those sexy letters from their spouses outside of prison and those sexy pictures they get to get them through. The uncomfortable truth that men particularly don't want to accept is that a lot of them discover that they are on the pansexual, bisexual spectrum. I think it's unfortunate that we live in a society that doesn't allow people to find themselves in ways that are more affirming, and that unfortunately people have to rally and come face to face with a hard truth under already difficult and hard times and circumstances like prison or like sexual assault. But that is the ultimate reality, and sexuality will never work that way. It's not possible to do. Your sexuality is influenced by certain biological mechanisms. It does not work that you can. So for instance, right, the arguments have to work when it comes to sexual assault too. Why is it that you have same gender loving people and who have also been molested and violated by people of the opposite sex, and they're not bisexual? Those victims are not bisexual now because they were abused by the opposite sex. They're not pansexual. They're not curious about their sexuality. Once again, the hard reality here is that unfortunately these experiences open the doorway for people to discover certain things about themselves. And I think, once again, it is arguably a very perverse and distorted way to discover certain information about yourself, which is why we have to be passionate about being more affirming and being more informational when it comes to conversations around gender identity, when it comes to sexuality, and provide proper space so that people have the space to recalibrate and to heal after said experiences, and or so that people already have certain knowledge base and have spaces provided to them, even if their life experience still leads them into situations where they will be sexually exploited or end up in the prison system under these bizarre circumstances. But I just have to disagree fully with the fact that sexuality, period, is contagious, and those arguments, they only work like when you edit them into place like what you did, a Frizzy, because you're talking about the men who give into that, but you don't account for the men who don't, and the women who don't, and the people who are sexually assaulted by the opposite sex who don't become bisexual. So when we argue these things, the science has to work. What's good, this is good for the gander. It has to work in both directions. It can't work just right here.
Okay.
Freezy, you're done. Presley,
Yeah.
you're done. Okay?
Next show.
We are ending the show.
Yeah.
Whoever else comes up next, give your final thoughts, and you got 2 minutes.
Right, and for the final thoughts, wait, hold on, for the final thoughts.
No, ma'am. You can say it later in the back chat.
For the
Mr.
final
Bennett,
thoughts,
thank you for coming up here.
right?
Your final thoughts, please.
Yeah. For the final thoughts, I want to hear a solution that you can give on how we can start bridging the gap towards this. This is a good start to understanding things. Okay, so Mr. Bennett, what is the solution that you can give to us on how we can bridge this gap between us?
Well, as I started the show with, I think it starts with recognition. Recognition of each other and our shared experience, which I think is at the core of what Blackness is. Unfortunately, again, we came into the show looking for that. But again, as CT said earlier, this whole the bulk of the conversation, we went on the sexual end, we went on just discussing the issues. But I don't think that we necessarily, I mean, you can be allies and not necessarily agree on everything. It's like to expect us to get all of our issues or disagreements or problems worked out. I don't think that's realistic or practical to the fight that's in front of us. If we want to talk about how we come together as Black people, affirm Black people and defend, as was said earlier, when we see anyone of our community that is harmed or damaged, then we should be willing to speak up against that. We don't have to agree, but I think for all of us to kind of get on the same page, we got to get on the same page on all these issues, sexually, identification, gender, whatever it is, before we can then go attack the problem. I think that wastes time. So again, I started out the show saying, look, I recognize that this community has always been part of an integral part of our community, whether we want to admit it or not. And I'm not about trying to fight this war about trying to get into these things, but how can we move forward for the betterment of our people? So again, it's not even to the point of just understanding everything, but I acknowledge and I say thank you certainly to those who have contributed. Thank you for those who suffered in silence. Thank you to those who've helped all of us to get to where we are now, where we can have this platform. So now let's see if we can move from here. And if we get to that level of understanding where we all love and embrace each other the way we are and everything, great. But that's in the course of human history, that's not how things work. You have allies who come together for common cause, and you can even say things behind each other's backs, whatever, as long as we get on the same page and get what we can agree on, what we need to get done, we get it done. So that's all I have to say. But thank you, Mandrell, for inviting me to the panel. I feel honored to be here, and I'm honored to share the stage with you folks tonight. And this was edifying, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Shoo, you got to let me shout out my channel.
You get to shout out your channel when you do your final thoughts, Freezy.
Okay, yeah. I love y'all.
We'll give you a chance.
We love you too, Freezy.
Also, to the producer in the back, or some of our what do you call those people? The wrenches.
Moderators.
The moderators. Yeah, post Consciouz TV. Plaster his channel in the chat. Also, our Reckless Logic. Plaster his in the chat as well. Okay. Y'all go out and check that content out. It's fire. They got good content over there. All right. Consciouz TV, thank you for coming. I really do appreciate it. Seriously, I am for real super grateful that you came. All right, what are your final thoughts?
Well, thank you for inviting Beyonce. I'm glad you also make space for Michelle.
Yeah. Okay, Farrah. Okay, Farrah.
And I am going to go live after the show, and we're going to continue on to this discussion. So please hit the link and join us for those of you who want to come over. This was a great discussion. I have to agree with Mr. Bennett. I think that we have to focus on things that matter as a community, and that is not our gender or our sexuality. I think we need to worry about competing in this capitalistic system. I think we need to focus on educating our children about the actual system and about who they are and what's needed and expected of them from the community at large. I think we have a larger agenda to be of service to our people collectively than we do individually, because of the issue of white patriarchal racism that's ruling over Western Black people at this point. So I wish we would shut the hell up about sexuality and gender and just getting to syncing the system, getting to putting together these conversations where we can form strategies around how we can actually empower ourselves in ways that are sustainable, socioeconomically, politically, metaphysically, etc. I think that the sexuality conversation is like tired as hell. And while we're doing this growth system that's overarching Black consciousness is continuing to have its stiletto on our necks. And that was symbolically represented by the blue officer who had his knee on George Floyd's neck. That George Floyd and that officer is the state of Black consciousness in the West. If I would say globally at this point, because there is a global colonization that is happening all over again in this world. I think we are underestimating our enemies. I think that they get off when these are our priorities. These are our conversations. And I just think that it's time to level the hell up and to move the hell around. So I really thank you all. I hope that we understand that homosexuality is not going to liberate Black people from white racism, which is the true domestic terrorism that's threatening Black consciousness on a daily fucking basis. So I want to shout out to the platform. I will share the Black Man Unfiltered. This was absolutely amazing. Mandrell and your sister, the most amazing, sweet host. I love you all. And just thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. No captivity with Freezy.
I made it back, y'all.
You made it back.
Okay,
he made
listen.
It bite. He made it bite. Shoot.
Get out of here. Just get out of here. And F you, just get out of here.
Why, Lord?
Yeah,
Why?
Freezy. Yeah, Freezy, get out of here. Freezy, if you could give us a solution.
Okay, so first off, I agree with CT. This has been a great discussion. I actually enjoyed myself, man. It's been amusing. It's been serious. It's been, but the most important thing we care, is respect. And I think that's what's going to, the big question is, how do we bridge the gap? I think is maintaining a certain level of respect. No matter what your sexual preference is, respect is due to everybody, right? And I think, and honestly, quite the contrary to what I think her name was Presley, what Presley was saying, I try to look at everything fair and balanced. I honestly believe that Black queer people, they do have disadvantages in this society, but I also believe that they have advantages as well, right? It just depends on what area of expertise you're in. We talked about the entertainment industry, or whatnot. What did I just walk into? Oh, okay, yeah. So, but I do want to say that Reckless, I appreciate the insight that you gave. There are things that I learned this evening that I didn't know prior to coming up on this panel, and I appreciate that as well. Shushu, listen, I got love for you. You like my sister, Mandrell, my brother. Everybody in the chat. Oh, and Rashawn in the chat. Listen, if you liked it on Reckless or CT one up, you should have just cammed up. Cause you around here brown nosing in the chat the whole time. I don't know why. See, it be them cowards. Y'all know y'all be liking them people. But anyway, listen.
Rashawn cool, man.
Okay, I'm just joking with him because he been joking with me the whole time. But listen. My channel is No Captivity with Freezy. All right. No Captivity with Freezy is basically more of a reactionary channel. I'm gonna start going live soon. My dog, I got to have my dog Drilly on there. And Shushu, they say Shushu charging because she in the entertainment world, whatever. But we're gonna work it out because I got the inside scoop with Mandrell, so we'll work it out behind the scene. But I just want to say I love all y'all. And Black Man, you know we had a discussion earlier offline. I love you, bro. I'm praying for you. I'm out.
Freezy.
All right, Freezy. No captivity with Freezy. All right, reckless logic. Again,
Whew, Lord have mercy.
Look, I said it. I said it before. I said it again. I'm super grateful that you decided to come. That you made time out of your schedule to come and join me on this panel and educate people. I wanted the two of you and Consciouz, come up here because there's a severe lack of knowledge and education when it comes to the world that you guys live in. Because when I hear from you guys and I learned a lot of things from you guys that I didn't know as well, this while ago, I'm like, yo, that's a whole nother planet. You know what I'm saying? There's a wealth of knowledge that we just don't know. And Presley, we apologize for dropping you, but I love Presley, you know that. But it's a wealth of knowledge that people just don't know. And I think that if people knew it, there would be some, empathy, there would be some compassion there, but I'm hoping at least. Yeah. And I had people on this panel to be on the initial panel who I thought were qualified to have this conversation in good faith. So there are tons of other people out there too, but I had to limit the panel. Couldn't have too many people up here at one time. But you two were at the top of the list. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. You did an absolutely phenomenal job. Thank you again. What are your final thoughts?
So the solutions when it comes down to bridging the gap would be empathy, being able to have empathy. And specifically, and this is, of course, as a culture, as a society, of course, all of us need to have empathy for each other. But there seems to be more of a friendship when it comes down to the female community and queer people. So not saying that there isn't issues, but there seems to be more of a friendship. But however, there seems to be more of a divide between Black men, heterosexual Black men, and queer people. So I think that empathy would be one of the main ways of being able to bridge that gap. Because even on this panel, even when me Consciouz, sometimes we kind of slipped in our experiences. I don't know if some people even caught it. One of the callers came up and said that doesn't happen. And one of the biggest parts of having empathy is that when people go to talk about their experiences, an experience that you do not have access to and you do not experience, you listen and you understand. The first thing that comes out of your mouth shouldn't be, oh, that never happened. Because now what you're doing, you're dismissing the experience and you're dismissing information to broaden your perspective to the way that the world is. We all see the world. Now, we all probably see the world like this. But when you listen to different perspectives, it starts to go like this. That's the reason why when women talk about their experiences of men, I listen. Because I'm a man. So I listen. Because I understand that even though I may be queer, even though I may be melanated, but however, I'm still a male. I'm still a man. So since we live under a patriarchy, I have to listen to women when they speak about their experiences. Because one of the privileges that I have as a male and a man is that when I go outside, I'm not really scared about being sexually assaulted. But women are. They're afraid. They're like, I can't walk late at night. Are you crazy? But however, you have to listen to those experiences to get a broader perception of the world and the way that things may affect you. And I also think one of the key factors or steps when having Black men being able to have access to empathy is also to have access to femininity as well. Not telling you to be hair and nails and stuff, but I'm talking about that divine energy, that energy that allows you to, because the divine masculine allows you to, it allows action. The divine feminine allows self-actualization. So anything that's on the internal, when it comes to creativity, when it comes to being a nurturer, when it comes to caring, when it comes to understanding, having empathy, those are feminine character traits and qualities. So we cannot teach men to neglect femininity at in all regards, and then think that they're going to have access to empathy so easily. So I think the first step would be having empathy, and of course, listen to different perspectives, and also do the work inside of yourself. When you do that work, you have to be honest with yourself. Because I'm just gonna say this, I'm gonna leave it alone. Is that before I didn't realize, and before I went on my whole journey, I didn't realize that I was misogynistic. But I was honest with myself, and I listened to the experiences of women that were telling me, okay, these are certain things when people say, or certain things that people do. I did not fight it and be like, no, that didn't happen. What are you talking about? No, I listened and I internalized it. I did feel a certain type of way because I felt like it was an attack, but I also understood that let me just sit on it and let me and allow me to allow this to marinate, and then eventually it digested, and then I was able to do the work to be able to change it. So I think that's the biggest thing: having empathy and do the work. That's it.
All right. Reckless logic, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
Thank you for coming. Yeah, he's right. If you're gonna do the work on yourself, it starts by being honest with yourself. Right. It does. Presley, I apologize for dropping you, but we were doing final thoughts for people who are a part of the initial panel. Yeah, but we are going to be backstage, for the after show and all that. Again, I apologize. You know I love you, Presley. I mean, we're cool. Right.
Yeah. Because every time, especially her and Freezy, every time they brought up a point, it opened up a whole nother
conversation. Yeah, it was like infinite conversation. Really, it was like infinite conversation. It was like, no offense at all. Okay.
But thank you for coming up.
So, what do you think of this show tonight?
I think it was a great show. Brilliant idea, Mandrella, if I do say so myself. It was because a lot of people, as particularly Black people and people who consider themselves Christian or liberal minded, the first thing that comes out of their mouths is, "Oh, I have no problem with gay people." But when so many people, and especially in his chat, Vaughn just said it, even TJ Randolph said it. Because of this conversation, I now have a different perspective. Mm-hmm. And that comes to show how if you don't have so much of a problem with them, how and why is it that there's a lot you don't know about them or about the community? Because it's like, okay, well, I don't have a problem with you, but I don't want to know nothing about you. I don't want to get to know anything about you, which is, I think, a lot of what I guess we're also saying too is just, about acceptance and the humanity. You know what I'm saying? Seeing the humanity in the LGBTQI community. It's just a conversation needs to be had. It will erase a lot of the stigma that there goes on our community, which I don't think we acknowledge enough, that there is a lot of stigma, a lot of preconceived notions about people in the homosexuality community. But the thing is, if you actually have conversations, non-biased, open-minded conversations, your perspective will be totally different about people who are, a part of the LGBTQI community. So just be more open-minded and have more conversations. The world is a lot broader than the ideals and the perspective that you have been fed. Because a lot of people don't question, they don't stop to think or wonder, what is it that I really believe? Do I really believe that? They just go along with whatever they've been taught. Mm. And a lot of, and what they don't realize is a lot of shit you've been taught that is completely wrong. So open up your mind and really start actually trying to have more honest, open conversations, and not just about the the homosexuality community, but about just life in general.
Yeah, and get out and see the world too.
You'd be surprised at what you actually believe and what you really learn.
Yeah,
so those are my kind of thoughts.
My final thoughts are: I put my answer actually in the title. Mutual respect is all we need.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? It really, because really, I don't have to know everything about a person to respect them, like treat them like a human being.
Right.
And that's really all it boils down to. Why are you not even doing that?
Yeah.
That's my thing. You know what I mean? And the rest of it, like the bulk of the conversation tonight, these are the things that we can learn along the way.
Yeah.
Like, because Mr. Bennett, Mr. Bennett said, like, okay, getting everyone to accept it, that's an exercise in futility. Not everyone is going to accept it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
However, if they heard the perspectives of the two gentlemen on the panel tonight, it would change the perspective of a lot of people.
Right,
Some people may still not accept it and stuff like that, the lifestyle and all that stuff. Cool, but at least hearing their perspectives will get you to get, okay, crap, these are human beings too.
Right, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I should start treating them that way. These are people, Black people. They go through the same struggles as Black people as I do. And because they're in the LGBTQ community, they go through extra stuff. Because this, you know what I'm saying? Because like they just told you tonight, this whole big LGBTQ movement, it ain't for Black ones.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, and the racism is rampant in their community too. So if we respect them as people, that would go a long way.
Right. Well, it's a great start.
Yeah, it's at least a great start. Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for everyone who came out tonight. Thank you for the usual viewers. Thank you for the new viewers who came out and watched us tonight. Thank you to everyone who came up on the panel and contributed. This is a fantastic show, fantastic episode. Everyone learned a lot, including myself. And we're gonna do another episode like this, not next week, but soon.
Yeah,
we're gonna do another one because there's a lot to learn and a lot to dig through. I think the education is extremely valuable.
Right.
Okay. Yep. So thanks for coming out. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Hi there, Black Men Unfiltered. Listen, today we have a special offer. We have the Wig Snatcher 1000 on sale for $19.99. Get yours now. Are you tired of your wife getting up every day looking like Rick James? Are you tired of your wife getting up every day looking like James Brown? You don't have to do it any longer. You don't have to suffer anymore. We have the Wig Snatcher 1000. We have them on sale now, $19.99. Get yours today.